For Tuesday, February 4th, we'll do a roll call vote so that it's in the record. Brian Bernalia.
Present.
I was going to have everyone say their own names, but it's okay.
Brian Vernalia, present.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Nick.
Nick Rosettos, present.
John Cortizis, present.
The Abjurius, present.
And I'm Carrie Layton, and I'm present as well. Okay, and then we convene the public hearing.
Yep, now we open it, yep.
Okay, now we're going to open the public hearing.
Do we need a roll call to go into public hearing? No.
Do we have any, pardon?
Do we need a roll call to
Yeah,
go into
yeah.
public hearing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have any updates or anything?
No, we're just going,
Are we going
that's
to do
going to
that?
be
I
in
was
the,
planning to do the updates at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay,
Now.
no, that's cool, that's cool. I
Just
just,
because it was the order that we have things in, but
yep, no problem.
we do have updates.
I missed the times on the agenda. It's very confusing.
We have
that's because the
pu-
times
no,
were always wrong, so like.
They made us feel guilty.
Please stay held us accountable. Okay. So we'll postpone updates until we close the public hearing and,
Like a motion to go into the public hearing?
didn't you just do it?
Yeah, but we have to state the reason for the public hearing,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so we have a public hearing to review the rules and regulations for this, for the subdivisions of land in the town of Winchester, Massachusetts, to review amendments to the regulations governing section 7.3 of the Center Business District of the town of Winchester, zoning bylaw, and then confirmation of the regulations governing both 8.11 MBTA overlay district for the town of Winchester zoning bylaw and 8.12 the Main Street mixed use district of the town of Winchester. Let's take them one at a time.
I move that we open the meeting.
I second that we open the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we unanimously have opened the meeting. And we can just take them in order. Okay, so with regards to the subdivision bylaw, or subdivision rules and regulations, what we're looking to do is to first sort of codify what we have as a regular practice, but we don't have really in writing anywhere, which is the step that's taken before an A&R, which is an approval under subdivision control law, an approval not required. So before the application gets submitted to the planning board, the staff tends to review it and decide whether or not approval is required. And if it's an A&R, it comes to the planning board makes their recommendation. So the step that we're trying to, the step that happens is that the town planner usually reviews it and decides whether or not the application is complete, should, be submitted to the planning board. We just don't have that written down anywhere.
Are you at a certain page on the handout?
So Taylor has given us, the third page of the handout is a summary of application procedures for other towns.
In the packet.
And is that a page in the PDF?
So it'd be page
Yes,
3, I
page
think.
3.
Page 3 of the
Okay,
PDF.
great, thank you.
So this is just formalizing what we've done since our last town planner, Brian Zakelli.
So currently, they don't go first to the town clerk. They go to, what's the current procedure?
So the current procedure is that, so I think the difficulty we will face not having Taylor here is that we don't see a lot of that part. So I think it gets stamped and then it goes to Taylor and then he reviews it. And then if it's appropriate, it comes to us.
Okay.
And this is, my experience has been that, engineering takes a look at this.
Right. So there's sort of an informal pre-application meeting to let you know if you should move forward. So we don't want to say Taylor Herman, we want to say planning staff.
So there's this thing about being stamped by the town clerk. So I see two things. One is that you want to have some indication of when it was received by the town so that you can determine whether it's being handled efficiently. But that timestamp shouldn't imply that it is complete.
Right.
So I don't know. So in my mind, you have two timestamps. So maybe maybe if it's submitted to the engineering department, it's time-stamped into the engineering department.
Okay.
And then it goes through the internal review, and then it goes to the town clerk to be time-stamped as a complete application. Because there has to be, the person submitting it wants to have some receipts, some
Right.
indication that the town has taken it in hand.
So the application, I'm going to read Taylor's recommendation, which is to amend the rules and regulations governing the subdivision in the town of Winchester to require town staff to review the A&R application for completeness and compliance before it's accepted by the town clerk and reviewed by the planning board. If an A&R proposal fails to meet the minimum requirements or is deemed incomplete, the town planner shall notify the applicant. So I think that covers the possibility that the town planner is a spot where it gets left hanging. So you're saying,
Well,
so that is engineering the better stop than the town planner time stamping it?
no, it's just that I know Suzanne has it, she has a
Okay,
machine.
she's got a stamp.
I mean, one of the things it doesn't say in here is, how long should it take? Like, if it doesn't happen within 30 days, what is the, what's the process for ensuring it's done in a timely fashion?
I thought timing, and if it is deficient in some way, that you should specify what it is. It shouldn't be hand back and say it's not right.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, technically, that's always,
Well, let's
Okay,
let's say.
but you're right.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, no, that's a good
So,
point.
so it needs to notify the applicant of, oops, why are you doing this? Notify the applicant of the deficiencies, which would be an addition.
Right.
Okay, so within 30 days, it is, so the 30 days, so within 30 days, it would either be accepted by the town clerk, stamped by the town clerk, and that sets off our process, or it's declined by the town planner with an explanation, with a written explanation.
No, I don't know if 30 days is the right time. It's just,
30 days sounds like plenty of time for the
it sounds
town
like
to
plenty of
respond.
time.
Yeah, and it could be 5. I mean,
Right,
it doesn't,
right,
right,
but
just up to,
Yeah.
because then the holidays.
Sure,
Yeah.
and.
But I think submitting it to either the planning department or the engineering department is the appropriate venue to go forward, rather
Yeah,
than going
smart.
to the clerk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Unless it has, I mean, one of the things is, how does this fit into the building department? In the sense is, would a person normally go to the building department with this in hand?
No,
No? Okay.
this is very, very much a matter of engineering. They're the ones who, make the call, planning and engineering, is that a road? Is that frontage,
Okay.
is that a public way? Building is, I want to see bigger piers on that deck.
Right, okay, right.
Yeah.
When we talk about deficiencies, though, are we talking about deficiencies in what you've included, or are we talking about that the lots aren't wide enough, for instance?
Anything like that.
Because they're two very different things. One could be the application doesn't one of the requirements.
It doesn't have a stamp.
It doesn't have a stamp, or
It doesn't have
whatever.
a wet stamp, sure.
But that's not really the assessment. The assessment of now we've received your whole application, is it worthy of an A&R, is a different assessment than just is everything here in person.
Well, it is, I completely understand, but it is sort of not able to move forward unless it has that stamp and that signature.
Yeah.
And that's sort of easily correctable, you would assume. And, being 20% short on the frontage is not easily correctable.
No. No.
So maybe it can't be, but in either case, you just enumerate the.
But it shouldn't come before the planning board unless it has been approved as a, I mean, it can't be an A&R unless it meets the minimum requirements.
Right.
So it's, if it won't get accepted. But, it could be as simple as, you don't have all the lot lines down, or you're missing this thing, which would be easily corrected, versus you just have something which is not an A&R, therefore
Right.
you just don't even move forward.
And that's why I guess what I was saying, I feel like there's two different ways it could be deficient. It could be deficient in sort of form, in that it doesn't have something it needed to have to be complete. And it could be deficient in that it's not worthy of an A&R. And I feel like those are two separate pathways. One is in the application process, and which is you submit everything and they say, well, you didn't include page 12.
I mean, I would hope, you'd hope that if they said, look, the engineer didn't stamp and sign this, that if they were to say, oh, yeah, right, and they went back and came back an hour later with the stamp, they wouldn't say, well, we'll take another 30 days to look at that stamp.
No, hopefully not.
But I think,
But it's sort of the same thing. You know, if it doesn't have the stamp, it doesn't have the frontage. It doesn't exist. You know, 'cause
That's a
it's-
good point.
You know, it's only there until the engineer says it's there.
But we also don't want anybody reviewing the packet of material until everything is there. So, again, stamp or, I mean, there's a whole bunch of requirements that are going to be included in this. I don't know. I feel like there's two different things, and I see what you're saying. I totally get it. But I just see there's two steps along the process. The first is to make sure, have you actually submitted everything that you have to submit? Okay, we're going to stamp it as received, start our clock, and then that's now the engineer and everybody can start looking at it and saying, is this actually right? And there are two different steps in my mind, but I see your point is a good one too.
so when you see these two different steps, is the way it's handled different? I mean, I acknowledge you can see two different steps, but the point is that it goes to the planning department. They make a determination whether of a deficiency, regardless of whether it's in, you know, incompleteness or there is something fundamentally wrong about the application. In either case, it goes through the planning department, and the the party gets notified. And so, is there something in your looking at this that process would be different?
One is a rejection, and one is saying we just don't have everything yet. So
But
we're not going to reject it if they haven't submitted the stamp. We're going to say, give us a stamp. Whereas if they don't have 20 feet and they need 30 feet, we're going to say it's rejected.
But you still have to go get another drawing. I mean, if they need 65 feet and they have 55 feet, we're going to say, they could go run out and go buy 10 feet and then
Yeah.
run back.
I mean-
When I think about, I know what you mean about reviewing the forms, but there isn't actually a big paper load here. That 65 feet and that stamp, it's all on the same piece of paper. It's kind of like not a lot of documents before us. I think.
I'm fine with that. I just want to,
they
I
could-
think
you
there's two
could just,
different steps.
You know,
and
do the checks, you know, is the legend in
Right.
the appropriate
does it have
place?
north on it? I mean, there was requirement to, all sorts of requirements in here. It has to have the scale of 1 inch equals 1,000.
Yeah, and
but
that's kind of,
that's-
it's all in the same document.
But-
I understand.
Yeah.
Let's also remember, we don't have Taylor here, and the amendment would be drafted by the town planner in consultation with council and presented back to us for approval. So as far as parsing at which point things will be decided, I think this is a bit of a
yeah, I mean,
Excursion.
in my opinion, the board shouldn't even have it in front of them until it is an official A&R which meets all the requirements. So as far as I'm concerned, the board doesn't care why it's deficient. The board, you know, so as long as when it gets to us, it's something we can vote on, then that's all I would care about.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, so how it's dealt with internally is whatever makes the planning department's life easier.
But this talks about how it's done internally, so you're right. We're getting into the weeds that we don't need to see.
Right, and the suggestion per the agenda is that the amendments would also, I mean, the amendment that they would bring to us would show us the forms, so we would have a full understanding before we voted to. This is just making the recommendation to go ahead with this, because it's,
So I would move that we adopt the recommendation of the town planner to revise the rules and regs as noted in his memo dated January 30th.
Are we,
thank you, Deb. Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Great, thanks. Further discussion? John, did you want to add something?
are we also talking about the fees?
No.
Not on this.
That's
not-
separate
that's a-
bullets. We're going to go one thing at a time. And the fees will be for a different section. Any other discussion on this specific topic?
Oh, just that we add John's comment that the notification to the applicant should include a list of what the deficiencies are.
Yes, I have that down, but thank you for clarifying. Okay. All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Okay, unanimously approved. Okay, before we move away from subdivisions, I wanted to bring up the possibility of one other adjustment to our rules and regulations. There was a significant amount of work done over the summer to create a roadway improvement plan by Taylor. The final version of a roadway improvement plan would apply to subdivisions, and it doesn't come up very often, but it came up twice over the last year, so it felt like it was important to kind of put one in place and to put a process in place that was very clear for applicants and clear for the board to review. And we don't have one in writing yet, and he did a significant amount of work on it. The last leg of that would need to be completed by an attorney. It's not something that we should be drafting on our own, so we can't wrap it up even soon, but I want to raise the discussion of adding a bullet to our preparations list for subdivisions that placeholds for a roadway improvement plan, so that we could then get feedback on how ready we are to find funding to get an attorney to write the roadway improvement plan. So if we decide to do that now, it would give us a platform for pursuing that funding, but for a little while it would sort of be a dead link. It would sort of be referring to a plan that's not in place yet.
So the only question I have was this, when this public hearing was publicized, was that part of what was going to be covered? 'Cause
Well,
can
we were
only-
vague. So it's rules and regulations governing the subdivision.
Yeah,
So the roadway improvement plan itself would have to be, vetted and discussed in a different public hearing. This would just be placeholding. And we'll have more to discuss anyway.
I think that you may want to consult with town council as to how vague you can be when you list things under public hearings. In the past, we were told that we had to be fairly specific so that the public would actually know what was going to be discussed.
Okay.
In particular, we were told that we had to put down, for instance, if it was a bylaw, we had to note the exact part of the bylaw, the phone number and not the phone number, but the section in the bylaw, so that people would know ahead of time. So
Okay.
I just, since we're not going to be creating this now,
So if we end up continuing this meeting so that we can revisit the points that are being raised this evening, we should continue it with an agenda item under subdivisions to potentially include a placeholder for a roadway improvement
yeah,
plan.
we should be specific because the people, the residents have a right to know what we're going to discuss, so.
Okay. So is there anyone who is sort of staunchly opposed to pursuing that pathway before we even consider how to make sure we get to that?
Could you describe more about what a roadway improvement thing would be?
Do you
'Cause
feel
I
ready
think-
to say
I
much
think
about that?
Our audience might like to know what that is.
I don't think I want to throw out criteria that, do you?
No, but just
do you
describe
have?
what is it?
So go ahead, do you want to?
Well, I mean, it's kind of talking about what your project proposes in terms of, how that road is, what is it accessing and everything that goes into when you're creating a new road, from what am understanding, but it's only come up once.
Is this
Twice,
an issue of, specifications? The width, the crown,
Right.
utilities?
Right.
Because
How often do you want fire hydrants or?
Right, so it's in consultation with, I think, engineering and the fire,
A bunch of people get into this.
right.
It's a lot of-
It ended up being a ton of work to do the process of approving the road without having a roadway improvement plan in place, because it is a lot of
but
groups that need to come
we've
together.
had a number of subdivisions
Right,
where we've had roads.
right. So we just don't have a specific way to process that.
Okay,
So he was taking kind of existing practices and moving it into a roadway improvement plan.
We saw a draft or something of
Yes,
this
he did a
past
ton of
summer.
work on it. Right.
And at one of our meetings, this came forward as not ready for prime time, but something that was in progress, just sort of.
Okay.
So I can go back and,
No,
Yeah, it won't be like a big reveal, new information, we're building tunnels underground and creating wildlife corridors. This is what we've heard before over and over again. I know it's a bummer.
Tunnels sound cool.
I know. My land bridge over Cross Street will happen someday.
there's some very interesting engineering with land bridges for wild crossings, but that's a separate issue. Okay, I'm just, so this is essentially writing down in the subdivision regs what we would currently be doing through engineering, which essentially has to look around and find regulations for roads from other communities or something like that?
Yeah, practices we've used, best practices from neighboring communities. It would be
Okay.
sort of amassing a process that is clear for applicants and clear for the board to review.
Okay.
Where before, I think it's been a little piecemeal. Like, I think, it's the one that's Mahoney's,
Yeah, Rocky Ledge.
a lot of lessons learned from that one.
Yeah, I mean, the big one was, of course, the one off of Highland, who's Abbey Road.
Yes, so we've had, so sort of lessons learned from those, and then we had the proposal from Forest, and we're sort of caught on the back foot every time.
Yeah, which is odd because we've had essentially almost every subdivision I can think of, perhaps except for the one over on Loring, has a road put into it.
Right.
So it's kind of weird that we don't. That's right. We were discussing what the width of the road should be, and we
Exactly.
didn't actually have a
Right.
specification for what it should be.
Exactly.
So,
So a
yeah.
number of hands go into it, but no particular, sort of organization to it. So this would mostly just be organizing that information.
So
Specifications.
Right.
in terms of, I mean, I
Looks
think
pretty
we
good.
could,
What do you think so?
Do test drive.
in terms of moving forward on this, I guess because the agenda wasn't very specific, but I would think that we could since we don't have anything in front of us, we can't actually vote it into the document.
Right, but we could maybe put it as something that we can bring up at the next, if we continue this to our next meeting.
Yeah,
We could say with the clarification that one of the subdivision topics would be potentially adding, I mean, he's not ready, we would need funding for, this is not imminent. This is just something I want to placehold because we're doing public hearings around subdivisions anyway.
yeah, but if we're not going to be doing this for several months, then we wouldn't be continuing this hearing anyway.
Well,
We have
this,
to continue
that we're-
this hearing at least for that first thing we did, because we don't actually have the words to put in here yet.
Right.
So we have to continue it or close it and have a new public hearing at another date.
Right, I don't think we want to have this, I mean, unless you're intending that the next segment of this public hearing be in 3 months, which I don't think you are.
Well, I was thinking
In 1 month.
1 month.
Yeah, okay, I think we can do that. There's got to be a rule as you can't have a public hearing drag out, 7 months from now.
No, this is, I think we can update the subdivision bylaw to include the.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable saying, we can move it, we can extend it for a month, and then we can get the smaller things in there.
Right.
But if we're not going to get the road development plan, because that's going to take us several more months, then we may as well just call a separate hearing for that.
Okay.
That's my only
My
point.
only thought with it was if we placehold it in the bylaw, then we'll have an easier time getting funding to get it reviewed.
In the rules and regs.
In the strike bylaw, did not mean that. If
So-
we put P under,
Those under
So by funding, you're talking.
4.3.
if under 4.3 plan contents, we put P, roadway improvement plan, an applicant would say, what's P? And for a few months, we would say, we don't have the roadway improvement plan in place yet. As soon as it's in place, and then we would go to, our budget and say we need to work on the roadway improvement plan. That was my thought. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but it cuts a public hearing out, which is,
I mean, I don't know that it makes it more likely to get funding if you have a placeholder in the document.
well, I chatted with our funding aficionado, and he felt like it could be helpful.
It was 7 of one, 6
Yeah,
of the other.
like we're in
Having
decimals. We're
it
in
in here
decimals.
means that when we go to try to get money, we can say, look, we've got it in there. We just don't have the improvement plan in place. But
The response could be is, why are you putting the cart ahead of the horse? You don't even know you're going to get the money, and yet you put
the
it
cart
in.
and the horse analogy.
Sorry.
Okay, and
Sorry, that gets too
also,
close.
for what
I
it's
so
worth,
apologize.
we have already met the goal because it is already on the table, whatever we do with it. It has already been raised.
I only I'm playing devil's advocate at some level here, just so that, but
Yeah,
I'm
no.
I'm in complete favor of putting in this roadway development plan.
Okay,
I'm complete favor. I just want to make sure that
yeah,
it gets through cleanly.
okay. We have to reach out to, okay, we'll figure out the best way forward for that, but
It sounds like there's
On
not
the table.
an appetite right now, and I tend to agree to put something in right now. But as you said, we've discussed it now, so now there's appetite to do it in the future.
It's out there. Cat's out of the bag. All right, moving on. So for,
Just only because we're in a public hearing, do you want to ask if people have questions from the audience while we're on any of these topics? I don't know.
do we have anyone calling in? Are you?
We're in public
are you
hearing, and we
here
didn't know
for-
if you want to talk about any of the things in public hearing, because it's a public hearing.
Oh, thank you very much. No, I'm just here for my 8 o'clock appearance.
Okay,
Great.
perfect. Just wanted to make sure you weren't being ignored.
Is there, so we're on from subdivision. So for the CBD, the mod, and the MSMD, we've got a couple of things, but the unifying topic for the three of these is the fee schedule.
Yeah, so one of the things that is, I think, the biggest difference that other than the fact that the fees are going up quite a bit, which was a little surprising, but I don't know, what I would like to understand is how those numbers reflect the actual amount of work that's done going into these. Because there is, we can, I think we can't make money off of them, but we can cover the actual work that's being done. So that was my first question, is how did we arrive at these numbers?
Are you on page 13 of 70?
I'm on page, yes, 13, yes.
Okay, that's great.
And the other question is, in the previous section, and even I think in one of the other towns, you got a discount if you went through the preliminary first, then your definitive costs less. And in this one, it seems like you get hit twice, so why go through the preliminary if it doesn't buy you anything? I mean, it gets you feedback earlier.
Well, I completely take your point. I know why you, as someone, if you were proceeding down this road and bringing plans, you'd be mostly thinking about, you would not have to make as large an investment in those plans with engineers.
Yeah.
When you do the preliminary, it would be a handful of thousands versus.
So do you think there's a reason for giving you a cheaper fee if you
I
went through
think,
preliminary?
I think that makes some sense,
Are any of these fees more likely to be paid by a homeowner as opposed to a developer?
Well, I think these are in the Center Business District, the Main Street Multiple Use District, and the Multifamily Overlay District. That's what MUD stands for. So those are typically going to be larger developers. So I was looking at the fees and I was thinking, wow,
Yeah.
Who's gonna be
they're-
hit
they're
by this?
expensive, yeah.
But I think, one of the things that previously, it wasn't for some of these, it wasn't per unit. It was like, you build this many units, you get this fee, you build this many. So it was like a bucket number rather than per unit. And I don't know, when I'm looking at it, I don't understand whether, like, for instance, if you pay $250 per unit, is it really $250 extra work per unit? How many hours is that $250? Again, trying to lead it back to what are we paying for, and is this a reasonable way of accommodating, what it actually costs? So,
And are these, it's not clear what's changing. Are these the suggested fees on the fee schedule that are increases from some baseline that we're looking at?
if you go to
Further
page
pages.
14,
Oh,
you'll see
14,
the
okay.
existing ones, and page
Okay.
13 are the new ones.
Okay. Oh,
They
I-
were much more complicated to
They're
calculate.
much more complicated,
Like
yes.
how many square feet of,
I agree with the simplification, I just,
although I'm willing to do a little bit of math to save money always. So
it would be.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, so I would believe that we should increase the fees, no doubt. I think, you know.
And I believe that was done with a review of neighboring towns, and
Yeah.
we were significantly behind.
And who
Standard.
took the lead on putting together the new page? Is it Taylor that went through?
Who
or-
collected the new,
that was
the
Taylor.
information Taylor did it?
So,
Yeah.
so, you know, out of a conscientious review and understanding that he has
He
put
included,
together his best estimate of what we should do.
he definitely consulted with the building department, and he included Lexington's planning board fee schedule.
Yeah.
They looked around and were like, everyone else is so much simpler and charging more. So we were behind for investment, and we were complicated. So it was an effort to simplify.
Yeah, I mean, again, my only concern is that we meet the requirement that we're not making a profit off the fees. And so if someone were to come in and challenge the fee, being able to back it up with saying, it takes X amount of hours to do this, and this is how much we charge per hour. And that's the only reason I bring it up.
Is that a state law?
Yeah, you can't make money off of fees.
So we can confirm that. This is something that would, which fees? Yeah, so fees and amounts, any amendment to the fee schedule would be drafted. So we could raise the question of how we can make sure that we're not turning a profit off of these.
And it would just be, you know, information to be held. It doesn't have to go into the schedule, obviously, but it would be, if someone wants to know how we arrived at the fees, planning department could pull out a
Just
memo
hand
and
them
say,
up.
here you
Yep.
go. And that would also make it easier in the future to keep those fees current, because you could say, oh, X amount of hours, this percent of an FTE for this long. We'll just, you know, put it in a spreadsheet, and every year punch in a new wage and you're done. So,
Okay, good notes. So we need the,
what kind of a motion do we need on this?
So what?
I'd like to raise one other question, which is whether or not we want to add a bullet to this as an enforcement fee. Whether or not we want to start collecting a fee for applicants who are not in compliance with the promised work or timeline.
What is it?
Oh, yeah.
So
Is-
40
See,
Church is a good
I had some
example.
questions too
Where
about that.
so it's not, I don't think it's unusual to have some, you've seen it in other towns, although I think your reference point's Kentucky, which will never fly in Massachusetts, but I appreciate your efforts. But we have essentially no recourse for projects that are falling out of compliance with what's been promised. So we were,
So,
And let me just piggyback onto that, that there are some projects that are particularly difficult parcels. You know, that some of them take a lot longer. Abbey Road took a ton of hours. The ledges had drainage issues that we had to deal with, and just wondering if the fact that we're spending so many more hours on those particular parcels that are so much more difficult and time consuming.
but those are this fee schedules for the CBD, MSMD, and MOD, though.
Okay.
so
But yeah, true.
And
Some
then
of
the
them
other
are
thing
just
I had,
amazing
and
amounts
to
of work.
keep in the back of your mind, is applicants that keep refiling, repeated application attempts, you know, with it, you know, maybe, refiling of a denial within 3 years, you know, maybe should have an extra fee.
Yeah, fair. We've got both. I've got the angel and devil in my ears here.
Aren't we kind of like,
So-
but you can't make a profit on that, right? I mean,
Right.
It's not a fee, it's like a fine.
You can't make a profit. So a couple points. One, we're not looking
but
to
it
sort of
takes
like,
time. I mean, it's like-
fund the annual retreat for the
Right.
planning board. Although now that it's out there, I'm just saying,
Right.
it's going to be a stressful year.
So I think, getting back to the penalties. So if you have something which has moved to the building department, that's under the control of the building department. So if they're not following through, so the question might be, okay, we have a special permit which requires you to do these things. But that special permit is overseen by the building department, not by the planning board.
But the planning board oversees things like signage, it oversees things like, I mean, there have been issues that have come up where we have trouble getting the engagement of a property
Right,
owner.
but I think it's, what I don't understand is where the penalty, what categories of things would fall under the planning board's jurisdiction that we could issue a penalty? So for instance,
Windows.
you know, under the fee schedule that we're looking at here, these are subdivisions. So if we're looking at Abbey Road, and if you can't point to, let's just take an example. We have a very difficult subdivision because it's a difficult area. It requires more work than thought. That's not the fault of the developer bringing
Right.
it forward. Is that a penalty because it's taking too long? How do we make up for the fact that it is requiring more town services? How do we assess more money?
Right, we're not trying to make money, but
Right.
we are
Well,
working.
that's different. That's a permit needs to be extended. That's sort of, those are,
Yeah.
those are issues that are outside of, we've tried to reach you, you're not responding, you're in the CBD.
I think you're talking about where we've given them a special permit, and we've laid out a list of conditions,
Right,
a window design perhaps.
perhaps, as an
And-
example,
And they ignore it. Appear to.
for months,
Or haven't,
as an example.
other than knocking on
What's
the
our
window.
recourse? Right,
Does the town have
exactly.
any recourse at the moment is the question,
I mean,
any at all?
I don't,
This could be a ceremonial fee. You will be sent to your room if you do not X,
Well,
Y, Z, and they
I'm
never
just wondering
go.
who gets is if once I do not know, once the special permit is granted, whether it is then up to the building department to verify.
It would be up to this is the whole zoning enforcement officer vague area. What is the zoning
But the
enforcement
zoning enforcement
officer's?
officer, I think, is not the same thing as you have something under construction, and you are still working under a permit, and you are.
Right, I agree with you, those are separate issues.
All I'm saying is that I don't know who gets does the ZBA, for instance, do they come in and issue fines for noncompliance?
No, I think the zoning enforcement officer does,
Yeah,
if they're
so I
having
don't know
trouble.
why we would have why we would take it on ourselves to issue those fees when if the zoning enforcement officer already is doing that for special permits granted by the ZBA.
But are they?
I don't know. You just said they might be. You just said, I asked if the ZBA was issuing fines, and you said, no, the zoning enforcement officer. does.
No, I thought we were saying who would issue the fines. I
Yeah,
thought
who
this
would-
was a
yeah.
question. I think the zoning enforcement
Right.
officer would issue the fines for whichever project. So some of the projects will fall under us and some of them would fall under.
So what role do we have?
We have the role of saying, you may charge a fee if you're not getting their attention.
the primary
It's in our rule and reg.
enforcement the zoning building department has is, there isn't really a fine schedule that I'm aware of in most jurisdictions. What there is I'm not signing a certificate of occupancy. And then you walk back to your car and go back to the office. And wait and see,
I mean,
Okay, let's just this is, the fee schedule is going to be, are we just vote, so taking my suggestion out of there, if we approve this, are we approving this with the numbers, or are we continuing this and
I
getting answers on it?
I would like to see it modified to take in, if you're doing both a preliminary and a definitive, I think you should get a discount on the definitive since you've already
Yep.
done. So I'd like to see that. I'm going to assume that the planning department's done its due diligence and that these numbers are reasonable, because that's their expertise. So I don't have a problem with the numbers. I haven't figured out in my mind whether the per lot thing, again, there's a, you've got $1,000 plus 500 per lot. But if you only, if you've got, most of the A&Rs we see are splitting one lot into two. So why not just call that 1,500? I mean, I don't understand how what the add-ons pay for.
That's my interpretation of that is, if you had two lots that had two large lots, and Lot A bought 50 feet from Lot B,
Yeah.
and they're both still in compliance, and we don't have a problem with this, That's one lot. That's $500.
I guess, I mean,
And 1,500, it's like, I don't see.
So
how
I thought
it's-
subdivision, so this is maybe a good point, because I thought that was reading that you have this one lot and you split it into two, that's now $2,000, because it's $1,000 plus two lots times $500 each lot is another $1,000.
so maybe we need a definition of how do we count lots?
Yeah,
Yep.
and the examples we each have are the most common types of things
Yeah.
we see.
That's the most common of all, is just one lot being split or two, or somebody.
Or someone
moving
giving,
a lot line.
giving someone a little more land.
Okay, so we need either an example or a definition of the lot.
Yeah, and again, if it's just moving a line, you're not actually,
Right, but
Changing
that's
lots,
what
yeah.
we experience a lot, though.
yeah.
There might be 0 lots in that case, because,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know it's a good point.
so I think that what you see in the old table is, it goes into that detail. You have lot line adjustments not resulting in the creation of additional buildable lots.
That's a lot of
So
what we do.
that is called out expressly. So
Yes.
maybe we need to revisit some of the reasons for the complexity and see
And,
maybe.
if you're thinking about the work involved, that first item up there, not resulting in creation of additional building lots, that is kind of like less work.
It is, but is it half as much work? Well, it seems, yeah. But anyway, I think those, it's, reviewing that might be good before we come back and vote
It
on
might be
this.
the exact same amount of work to actually do it. I don't know, because they still have to make sure all the setbacks are all right, still have to make sure there's enough frontage. I mean, it couldn't end up being not a difference in amount of work.
Okay, so let's have a couple people tag up. Some combination of the three of you, but some quorum would be good to meet with probably Tom at least and Taylor and figure out what the way forward for getting this fee schedule right, and we'll just revisit it when we continue at our continuance.
Okey dokey.
And then I would like someone to discuss enforcement fees when they're at that meeting. Do we want to assign those people now, or do we want to let that happen offline?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay, fabulous.
I'd be willing to.
What's that?
I'd be willing to look at that too.
Yeah, no, you're stuck doing it.
Oh, God. Okay, gotcha.
You're the
paid
one
to do
that's
that,
not
the rest-
optional.
Oh, I thought, okay. Good.
Appreciate it, though. Okay, so there's no particular guideline update for the mod. The mod was included because of the fee schedule, so that's the MBTA overlay district. I'll also briefly mention that the next topic that we're going to tackle, which is the regulations for MSMD, the design guidelines.
They're beautiful.
They are beautiful, and these are, so we are not formally adopting them as MBTA guidelines. Those regulations are kind of still being, sorted through the laws, but Taylor is offering these as an example of projects that would be looked at favorably by the boards and committees. So that's sort of how we're handling design guidelines for 3A, is sort of saying, this is what the town loves, do with that information what you want. We have not had, I don't think, any 3A applications. People are liking the MSMD option, so once that's approved by the Attorney General, as a bylaw change, not as a something that we're really worried about, just waiting for them to stamp it.
Okay.
So we might
MSMD
come
will be
back
an
at some
option.
point in the future and look at mod design guidelines.
Yes,
But we
in the future.
cannot really right now, because the state regulations are still they've gone back to the beginning, and
They're probably going to be very similar.
probably identical, but we can't be sure, and we don't want to do this 5 times.
So I went through this, and it really is a very nice piece of work. I only came up with one thing that I had a question.
Okay, why don't we lead with yours, because Brian has several.
Okay, so I'm on page 2.
What page of that is the whole? Of the whole?
That's page 24.
Okay, great.
And the only thing I have is at in little subsection 1.4, the last sentence says, in the event of a conflict between the text and any figures, the text shall govern. What it doesn't say is if there's a conflict between the design regs and the bylaws, which shall govern. So I think we should, I know there's all this stuff which says this flows from the bylaws, et cetera.
What is it?
Yep.
Let's say there's a number.
Bylaw always, Precedes, I think supersedes, right? Doesn't the bylaw always supersede the
Has
rules and
to.
reg?
I think, but
These are sort of recommendations.
yeah, but I just, you know,
The other one's
believe me,
law.
we've gone
These have some
through
teeth. They're more than just
So that might
suggestions.
end up, is that in the
No,
provision?
It's not, it's.
I think it would just be.
It's not the same as a bylaw.
Just add it to
Agreed.
1.4. Now, the current guidelines that are in place for the CBD are a subject of very hot debate about how they relate to the bylaws. So I think it's important that we say that if there is a discrepancy, the bylaws win, because those are the ones voted on by the town. And that may be obvious because of how it flows, but I think it would make it, I think people who go to the guidelines, because that's much more accessible than what's in the bylaws, right? They're gonna go to this. Just having
Yeah,
that in there.
just put it in there.
It's just a, hey, if there's a problem here, that rules.
Does it normally,
I
it
don't-
wouldn't go under text and graphics, I don't think.
I don't know where it would go.
But I think it would go under provision, the provision, so
Yeah.
noting that this will not be finalized until council writes the provision section, so let's make sure that they know.
What is the provision section? That's the part, I don't know what that word is.
I think it's things like, this is secondary to the bylaw,
Lawyer talk.
yes,
Provided that, is that where
Right.
provision goes? Whereas,
yeah.
And therefore,
Okay, so let's
Okay.
let's put a note in there that should ensure that the bylaw supersedes the rules and regs.
other than that, I step back.
Okay. John, do you have anything, John and Nick, you were the guardians of the design guidelines, any points that you want to raise?
I think it looks good.
They're good, I think they're good,
It's fine.
yeah, they'll be fluid.
Oh, my God.
okay, so
At least you have something written down.
I mean, we hashed, these are the result of,
If you
All the
want to
churning.
really, like, understand them, how good they are, it's a tool. You have to use it.
yeah, use them, I agree,
Once you go and use it,
yeah.
Right.
you know, then you go down the path,
yeah.
you know?
But we can agree they're really nice looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
They are
that's,
the shining bylaws on a hill. These
it's
will
like that
hopefully-
master plan. It's really good looking.
It's really good looking.
Oh, yeah. I know the graphics. I just had a great time with it, you can tell.
Hopefully this makes light industrial easier if we need anything there. Hopefully if we revise anywhere else, we can come back to these. This will be home base for bylaws. Anyway, do you want to lead us through, Brian, your
Yeah,
comments?
so I had some comments, and my page numbers are based on the page number in the document, not the page number in the packet.
Yeah, so use the figure 2.
So on page 7, figures 2 and 3. Figure 2 says does not meet the frontage. Sorry, I didn't bring my reading glasses with me.
It says building that does not meet the frontage build-out requirement because the front facade is set back too far from the lot line. So I think they address what you are.
They do, but then if you look at building, figure 3, building with a front facade on the property line, which is contributing to frontage build-out requirement, is that 12 feet from?
But I don't think I think he's using this as an example.
Okay, that's all I want to make sure is that
Yeah.
we're being careful. I feel like even though we have that up front that says figures don't represent, like if there's figures and text don't match, I just want to be careful when we add a figure and somebody says, well, that's what they want. They want that right there.
I see what you're saying, but I
Wait,
think,
what, you said you're on page 7?
no, he's
7,
using page.
figure 3. Figure 3.
Yeah, Maura.
Figure 3 is on page,
It's on page 5.
It's 5 on the packet, yeah.
Oh,
I did notice one other thing I want to say.
I was using the pages numbers from
The packets, I think it's
Go
different.
ahead, Dieb.
Oh, we don't have the planning board logo in the corner. We have the town of Winchester logo. We need to put the planning board logo. We paid good money for that logo. Okay.
So I think those points are fine. I was just concerned that we have figures that show something that we like about it, but have other aspects that we would say aren't okay. But that point is fine. I just was reading through this and I wanted to make sure that.
I see what you're saying, and I see what you're saying because 3 follows 2, so if you're reading them as a story, you're like, oh, is this how close they want it? But I also think that he's specifically calling out different, there are 2 eyes in figure 4. I think that the figure 4 kind of answers figures 2 and 3.
Okay, and figure 4, I feel like should just say, this is good, we like figure 4.
But it's good because it contributes frontage build-out requirement and has the
Yes,
12-foot
it's got both,
sidewalk, which
yeah.
corrects 3.
Perfect.
So I sort of
Okay,
think that
that's
works.
fine. Next comment I have is on page 9 of the document, so
Let's just do sections. So 3.6A.
3.6A. I didn't understand, 3.6A, I don't understand this. The last sentence of this, off-street loading facilities must be visually screened from the public ways, public open space, residential zones, and vehicular access must be from on-site, not directly from the street across sidewalk.
So I think we want to switch across to crossing sidewalks. We don't want people crossing the sidewalk to get to the parking if we don't have to.
So if you look
Right.
at figure 8, you look at figure 8,
Yeah.
you see the only way to get into that loading zone is to drive across the sidewalk.
So instead of across, I think you're thinking they mean across from the sidewalk, and
Yeah.
they mean crossing sidewalks. Like, are you going across the sidewalk to get into the building?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I,
I was,
It took me a second.
okay, then it's fine
It's
then.
no, it's confusing.
I
think
just kept on reading it over and over, and I was like, I have no
I
idea what that's saying.
apparently have read far too much Shakespeare because I did not find this confusing.
Yeah, I mean, because he called it out, I read it a second time over with him calling it out, and I was like, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're just saying it can't go, the loading dock can't be
You have
on the
to-
sidewalk.
It has to be accessible from within the site. So that means you have to drive onto the site and then you can get into it.
Vehicular access must be from on-site,
That's
not
even different than-
crossing the sidewalk
Yeah.
from the street. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not particularly well crafted. Of course, you're going to have to cross the sidewalk.
I don't know how you get there otherwise than crossing the sidewalk.
But,
There's the tunnel.
Yeah.
but the key is you don't drive directly across the sidewalk into the loading zone.
You drive across into the back and then
Talk
go
about
to
a
the loading.
road and there's a curb
You
cut
load
and you
in
drive
an area
through.
which is- yeah, so,
Well, you can't be seen from the sidewalk or,
so I think.
Yeah, you're going to
Be screened.
You talk about screening. Yes, yes, certainly.
Well, it says it's visually screened from public ways. Access must be from on-site. So
So
for
you
instance,
presume-
this is not on-site.
Right.
yeah.
This is definitely the what looks like an ambulance, if you ask me. No, it's a U-Haul.
U-Haul.
That is not on-site access. That's directly off-site, so. But if there were a driveway in front there, would that be on-site?
Yeah.
So that, but
I mean, you're going to have a driveway. What you're saying is, you have a driveway, you have a vehicle access, and all the functions of that vehicle have to be assessed from inside that sidewalk. You know, you don't cross over for the loading.
right, but one could imagine that. I see what people are saying. I can see where I can put a hole in this argument and say, I'm just gonna take a driveway which is 50 feet long. I'm gonna come onto my property, and then once I'm on site, I can then drive to my loading zone.
As long as you don't cross a sidewalk.
Well, I have to cross the sidewalk to get onto my property.
Yeah, but
and
that's
then
a
from the
driveway.
property.
You always have to.
But if the only reason for that road being there is to access my loading zone, I guess that's still on site. I can make that road,
We have limits about curb cuts, so.
yeah, but I can make that road 10 feet long, and as far as anyone could tell, it could still, like, for instance, if you set this building back 5 feet, so that, you know, there was actually a 5-foot driveway, and you were on site before you entered the building, would that be a violation of these rules?
Yeah, I mean, if you're so we have these nice 12-foot sidewalks. I think we're trying to prevent you come in your driveway here, and then you loop around over the sidewalk and you pull into your.
Yeah, I just, being able to make sure that,
Well, that's,
you know, somebody's gonna come in and figure out a way around it, so the
It-
question is.
I know, but
Yeah. I just was confused by the words. If everybody but me is okay, then I just was confusing to me.
I think we have found plenty of places where it will be confusing.
Okay.
And I think changing it from directly, I think crossing side, or intervening with, I think that's parsing that we can do.
Okay. The next thing I have is 3.8. which is access to parking. I feel like that something that's missing in this section is that traffic flow in and out of the parking lot may be limited, in that we might require that cars exiting don't turn into the neighborhood, that they have to turn left out of the parking lot to go out to the main street, because we require the parking to be off a side street, and that side street may go to a residential area. And we might want to just indicate somewhere here that the board may limit entrance and exit directions into the parking lot.
I thought we hammered this out in the process, and we added unless determined to be impractical for safety or traffic flow reasons. Is there a better clarification for that?
That is saying it has to be on the side street unless impractical for, I'm saying even if it's on the side street, it's possible that we don't want the cars, there's 30 cars parked in the back. We don't want them all saying, I don't want to go out onto Main Street to go because it's more traffic. I'm going to cut through the neighborhood and make the neighborhood turn right, go through a neighborhood and get back home at the end of the day. I want, we might require that they turn left. You have to go down to Main Street. You can't go through the neighborhood.
Are we
I think that we have that option. I think the bylaw gives,
If the bylaw gives us that, then that's fine. It just,
well, it's part of the traffic. It would be a traffic management plan.
okay.
Design review guideline,
Yeah, so it would be something that falls under,
that's going to get looked at.
yeah.
That's fine then. I'm just going through the things that I sort of looking at this document. So this one might be the same thing, which is 3.14, which is street trees, and I love trees. However, we talk about height of 30-foot trees at maturity. I think that as long as we understand that the tree warden have discretion that those 30-foot trees, if they're under a power line, it might not make sense to put a 30-foot tree underneath the power line. It might be a different again, if we put guidelines here, we just want to make sure that they're not going to be something that we put an oak tree underneath we have one in our neighborhood, an oak tree under the power lines, and they have to trim the middle of it like crazy.
We have that the location will be reviewed and approved during the site plan review process. And then separately, and the SPGA may consult with the appropriate advisory committee on trees. So we have sort of like site plan review process can be like impractical, it's under a wire. And then if we decide, yes, a tree there, then we have people reviewing the tree itself. Is there better clarification?
They'll just cut it down, don't worry.
They'll just keep it as a bonsai.
Because mostly the
It'll be
height, because I
fine.
could picture there's a place underneath the under
no,
a wire
I'm with
where you
you.
say we'd
I'm with
still
you.
want a tree here, but we're going to put a tree that's an ornamental that's 15 feet tall because
Right.
it's going to look great here. And I didn't want, I don't know. Again, I just went through these. I maybe went too detailed through these.
No, I think maybe just simply putting in that, put in an escape clause. It should reach a minimum of height unless
Interferes with public utilities.
well, I would leave that
Traffic
up.
lights.
Unless deemed to the tree warden, unless deemed differently by the tree warden, or
Yeah, I wouldn't say exactly why, but just a general escape clause saying that, it can be reviewed. I don't know.
I mean, I think we've got the tree warden in there, we've got the location being reviewed during site plan review, and we've got an advisory committee looking at the trees.
But we
Do we
do.
want to name, so utility lines is sort of, do we want to put that in there?
I think it's just, the minimum of height of 30 that's the only place other than the caliper that we put in a dimension that's required. So the caliper.
But if we
makes
don't,
sense.
everyone will pick small trees.
No, I
there.
agree, but that's why I think we should put in,
With the potential to, or,
put in unless, a must reach a minimum height unless,
deemed unsuitable by the tree warden,
I-
or deemed inappropriate
by the planning
by
board.
the planning board. We could even say by the planning board.
Yeah.
Or we could leave it, and when they come and put the trees in, we can say, no, don't put a 30-foot tree there, put a 10-foot tree there because there's an overhead wire and you're going to end up having to cut it down in 20 years.
So the key thing is these are guidelines.
Yeah.
And so,
Yes, they're guidelines. They're not.
so
Right.
let's just assume that we will have people who think through these things.
Guide them to a shorter tree.
Okay,
You know?
so these are just things that I reviewed.
No, that's good.
On page 15, 4.3, the half-story issue. I feel like we spent a lot of time talking about the 50-foot setback for the half-story above the third floor. And we have in here, for buildings abutting a residential district along their rear or side lot lines, a pitched roof half-story above 3 stories in height must be a minimum of 50 feet from the lot line. And I'm okay with that, but I think in East 4, or maybe it's East 3, I can't remember, that would be pretty much every lot. So even though they can build by right to 3.5 stories, those lots are small, they're not that deep, they're probably 50 feet, maybe they're 75 feet deep. They're not going to be able to build above 3 stories because of that.
I maintain that was the intention of the bylaw, though.
And if that's fine, but
As we were in the denser areas, I think there's one lot that's the exception, or maybe I'm thinking of the wrong district, but I think the intention was that if it is a shallow lot close to the neighbor, it was not going to be allowed to be as tall because it would.
And that's fine, but we basically have heights in the bylaw that say you can go 3.5 stories for a large number of some sections that basically de facto this means you can't because of the depth and the location.
And we said lot line, not curb.
Yeah.
So, you lose that 12 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got it, it's not going to be an issue on Main Street.
No.
All of it.
Yeah.
All the lots are dimensionally challenged that way. So don't worry.
So my question is, and since apparently we haven't got, our zoning hasn't been updated, did we actually specify that number in the bylaw? Or is this just in the guidelines?
Just in the guidelines, I believe.
Okay, yeah, I can't access, we don't have it online yet, so I don't.
No, I believe it's just in the guidelines, because in the bylaw we have the heights that are allowed in each,
I don't believe we address it in the dimensional requirements.
Okay,
because we talked about this last time when we were talking with Michael. And originally we had 50 feet, much more pervasive throughout here. And he even said that needed to go because it effectively meant a lot of areas you couldn't have taller than 3 stories. So I'm not saying we need to change it. We spent a lot of time talking about it last time, and I felt like it was something that.
the question is, did we come to a decision? Or did we just talk?
Well,
about
Michael was working off our notes, so per
Yeah.
the result of his work, I think this was the decision that we came to, but we can,
It's not in the dimensional.
Okay.
That
so this could be, again, we won't know how great these are until we use them. So if it ends up being a huge obstacle, we could do a public hearing and amend them if we
Yeah,
need to.
I mean, what'll happen is people will come in and they'll read this and they'll say, huh?
You say 3.5 stories, but
Planning-
nobody in this whole area can do 3.5
The
stories.
planning department will review that and say something.
Okay. Figure 37, which is page 17 of the document, but
Page 37.
So I don't know what you're talking about, because my document says page 15 at the bottom in the blue.
So, he's using the PDF.
I use
Just use the figure numbers. It's figure 37.
Sorry, mine says page 17, right on the bottom of
On the blue.
in the blue of.
Yeah, mine says page 15.
Yeah.
Mine says
I'm
page
using the one in
15
the
too.
packet.
I printed out the copy that got emailed to us.
So I think Taylor asked for a few adjustments. So the packet, I think, is a slightly updated version.
Okay, so I printed out the copy before then.
Okay. Page 37, that's a gorgeous
figure
building.
figure 37.
Figure 37.
So
It's a cool building.
cool
but it's a
building.
good
I
point.
want that figure removed. That does not capture the spirit of, I think, anything we're talking about asking to be built in town.
I don't know.
You don't want to see a club on a roof deck in the middle of downtown Winchester
I think
because
that would
that
be a
could
really
be a
interesting piece of
draw.
architecture.
Does that fit into the what's the phrase, context of
Contextual.
textually to Main Street or Winchester
Does it
or
reference-
There are certainly some modern designs in Winchester, which, I mean, this
There are
is a
some.
very
That's
large
fair.
building,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't know if the
can't
Acera
argue that the-
school, the Acera school has some
Fair.
very interesting design. Now granted, it's in a little cul-de-sac on Lowell Street.
But it could spark a revolution in architecture.
Yeah, so you know,
Because like,
I don't think you can argue that the roof is the focal point. I think that's
definitely
a
is the
great
focal
example
point.
of where
I
the
don't
roof
know.
became the
I would-
focal
I would
point.
stand under that in a rainstorm.
So I just don't think that, again, I go with these figures and I say to myself, these figures are trying to show something, and unless we're saying this is what we don't want, I'm worried that showing that is saying that's something kind of like what we want. I don't think I spent a lot of time not trying to get that.
I could support you on that.
Well, but then, you know, let's look at figure 22, which is on my page 10.
20.
Yeah, are we building a lab building from Cambridge?
Figure 22.
I mean, there are a number of buildings in here where
It's a commercial space.
Michael's
Yeah,
chosen
good.
to
We had
use
space.
some part of that building
Would
to
you think?
illustrate something, which doesn't necessarily mean the entire building. I mean, figure 41, I mean, I think there's, I understand where you're coming from, Brian. I personally, I don't have a problem with that design because I think it does fit in with modern design, which we do have some structures in town. So there was a tension on this board, I know, about design. But I would say.
I don't think it's saying build a fan-styled large roof. I think it's saying, is the roof the focal point of the building? And I think in that example, the roof is the focal point of the building.
But, you know, if there is another picture which shows a focal plane roof.
Yeah,
which
like a turreted,
is less,
modern.
I'd be willing to
Modern.
consider a different
but
picture.
I would be careful about, I mean, I can go through a number of these images and say, you know, we don't want to see 399 Boylston.
There is a,
Right.
there is a possibility that we will end up, because I think Michael is no longer, I think his contract has expired, so there's a chance that we will be finding our own image. I'm just putting that out there, but if we can
We're
find a
finding what?
better,
We'll be finding what?
I think we would find our own image.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not positive the details of that, but I believe his contract is definitely expired.
Okay.
I know he's incredibly committed to this project. He's done amazing work, and if we reached out and said we need a different roof design, he'd probably do it, but it could be us finding an
I
example.
was trying to do my best to not go through every building and prejudge. This building is something that would go through DRC, that everybody would like it, whatever. But that one stands out. Like it's like if we wanted to put the Guggenheim Museum in downtown Winchester.
You're pushing my button.
Happens, you know. That's the way we go.
In place of Stop
Okay.
and Shop, right?
Yeah.
So.
Beautiful location.
I can understand where you're coming from. I don't have a problem. I just, you know, if let's be uniform in how we look at whether an image is appropriate. Mm-hmm. And let's, you know, and maybe it's really appropriate to indicate somewhere, and I think, it does talk somewhere in small print about how these are for illustration only.
Yes, no, it says it right in the
But,
first
you know,
paragraph.
we could make that a stronger thing and say that these images illustrate particular points. Look at the words. The words are the ones which are supposed to tell you.
I like that. I could keep. So I think I was consistent on all the figures, and I looked at all the figures, and I went till I got to the cutoff, and then I was like, everything beyond that, I think we shouldn't have as a figure, and that was that one.
Okay, well, it's
But I
like
think if we add,
7 sigma,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, we'll look for a different illustration. 4.7a.
yeah, I didn't understand this at all. 4 point. Let me just get to the page. This does not include lobbies, common areas, and common and amenity areas. And I just wanted to know, what is this? It said this does not refer to, and I need to find the page.
Must contain, it's page 17 in the revised version, but it's 4.7a section if we're all working off.
And I just
different
didn't know what this, because usually when you use the word this refers to the last noun in the sentence before it.
I think it refers to the 66% of the ground level facade line.
All right, let's diagram this sentence, folks. In commercial or mixed-use buildings, 66% of the ground level facade length facing the front lot line along the primary street must contain commercial, retail, or other activating uses such as makerspace, live-work units, art galleries, studios, or community use space. So in the previous sentence, we have a prepositional phrase in mixed-use buildings, 66% of the ground level facade.
That's the subject.
That's the subject. Length facing the front lot line along, prepositional phrases coming at us left, right, and center, must contain, so now we're into the conditional parts, blah, blah, blah. This is the ground level facade.
So let me add,
Does
let
not
me rephrase my
include
question.
lobbies, common amenity areas.
We've got the ground level facade length. 66% must be commercial. Is that, and it said not including, does that mean 66% of the space not including
Yes.
what is
The lobby doesn't count. The common
Doesn't- so
amenity area doesn't
66%
count.
of
The
the
back of the
other
house
space?
doesn't count.
66% of the total facade length must contain activating uses.
Yes.
That does not include, you cannot count a lobby as an activating.
As an activating space. I
This
didn't know
is
if we were
the-
counting it as activating
this is-
space or counting it as facade length. This.
No, it does not count towards your 66% of the facade.
Okay, so I read that as counting that we were going to look at the facade length of 100 feet.
Yep.
20 feet are lobby, so we got 80 feet left, and we have to use 66% of that 80 feet.
No,
And that's where it was
No,
confusing.
no.
That's why it could.
it's the.
No, 60% of the facade length. So 2/3 of that has to be something that is not lobby, that is not,
Residential.
It says this does not
It
include.
has to be,
Right.
it fall into those.
Right.
So,
you're not cutting out, no, the lobbies, yeah.
right.
And that kind of is shown in the diagram.
It is
Yeah,
kind
I
of shown in
think,
the diagram.
But it's, the words, I think, are
Didn't like
more
the use of-
evocative than the diagram in this
I
case.
didn't like the use of the word this because I didn't know which it was referring to. This.
I think what they're saying, they want 66%.
See,
And you can't be using lobbies to count towards
Yeah.
that goal.
yeah.
You know?
okay, so
You can't be using, lobbies, and it's got to be the actual activity, not
so it
something
could.
that is subordinate.
Better would be to say lobbies, common areas do not count towards the 66%. Okay,
Sure.
if you guys are good with it, I find it confusing.
No, it is a little confusing.
So
yeah.
we can just say, make it less confusing.
Yeah.
So remove the antecedent is not clear.
Okay.
Can we say that even more?
Fewer
complicated
prepositional
in the
phrases.
instructions?
We can make them more, yeah.
We can write our constructions as Yoda.
Okay, we now have 2 applicants present and 2 more bullet points to get to. Can you get us through them?
Yep. We have page, I don't know, 4.11.
Material quantity, materials quality.
This was the, I'm no expert in EIFS. I actually don't know very much about it. I'm sure you know a lot more than me.
Oh,
It's not permitted at the ground floor level. Is it permitted at other levels? And if so, do we care? And I don't know. I don't care.
It'll be fine. What
Okay.
we're concerned about at the ground floor level, it's very fragile. Basically taking rigid foam, covering it with a stiff stucco.
Okay.
It's a very common finish, but it has about the strength you'd imagine. You could tap it, shopping cart, car, very easy to damage. Not often installed at the first floor level,
Okay.
period, because it's
So it's
miserable.
fine on upper floors.
Sure.
Okay. I didn't know why we didn't want it.
Yeah,
I
but
just
it's a
knew-
great, it's really adds to the insulation package, and it's fun.
is it woodpecker proof if you put it up on the second floor?
Nothing really is, you know? I mean,
The last
I apologize.
last comment, 4.20, building lighting. We state somewhere else in building lighting, but I think we should state again here that something along the lines of commonly accepted standards for energy efficiency should be utilized. I just feel like we should be saying that over and over and over again.
I mean, don't worry, the energy efficiency is well covered by the building code. Well, I mean, we just voted for the, most
Right.
They don't need our help.
Yeah, and I think we say something in the.
We do say up front in site lighting, but we say those words in site lighting, but we don't say it in building lighting.
Oh,
So, those are my comments.
Not
Take
all
them,
that-
you can take them
not
as
all
you
that
want.
concerned with all that glass in the front of the building.
Fair point. Anything else?
I don't know how long this, I don't want to take a whole lot of time. One of the things that I've been working, in my own notes is the tension between calling these things design guidelines versus design criteria. And I've always forced myself to use the word criteria. And I'm wondering if that's probably what I'd like to call them, is design criteria. It just seems to have a little more weight.
the actual document calls them standards.
It does, but
Yeah,
so why don't we call them design guidelines on the?
Good point.
Because
So maybe that's something to talk about. But
Do we want to, where you're seeing
every
standards?
single header says guidelines.
it does, but then some of the subdevelopments, so then, let's just, section 3.
I think it should say
Says
or
development
standards.
standards.
It should say standards or criteria.
Design standards, the whole
The
document.
individual sections are
Well,
called standards, but the entire thing is called guidelines.
Right down at the bottom. Guidelines just roll down on the blue.
Yeah, and the title, that's, I mean,
Right.
But every page, the header at the top
the
always
standards.
So I think standards or criteria would be a little more
Standard,
hefty.
Yeah, standards is,
I like standard.
it's in sync with the rest of the document. That's a good call out, Nick.
I mean,
So
Okay.
Agreed.
So, leaving ourselves room for edits from council and for updates from this discussion.
I move that we accept them,
Adopt.
The design, I think we're adopting.
adopt,
you're right.
we adopt them, with the as edited, or as amended, with council's, provision section, whatever that is.
Second.
I will not choke up. Okay, all in favor? Unanimously
Excellent.
adopted.
okay.
I will call out Maura Sullivan in the audience and her excellent contributions to this process. Thank you.
We need to continue
Close-
the hearing.
We need to, yeah, is there a motion to continue the public hearing to our March meeting,
At what
March
time?
4th at 7 PM in the select board room, I believe?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Unanimously continued the public hearing. Okay, so we have already opened the planning board meeting. Major update, Naomi Solo Herman has joined as an mini member. Congratulations to Mika and town planner Taylor Herman for the arrival of their daughter, who weighed in at 7 pounds 9 ounces and arrived at 7:22 a.m. on February 3rd.
Please pass our thing. our
Yes.
thanks. Please pass.
Love,
our
congratulations, yes, and
Since
all
his
the
email
things,
was
and
bouncing.
well wishes. Yeah, although now he's starting to answer them, and I think he should be logged off and enjoying his family, but those are weird days, so it's okay. Otherwise, other updates? Anyone want
I
to?
bring
Yes.
up app. Can I do that since we have people here? Can I
it later?
do it
Yeah.
later, yeah.
Yeah, why
Okay.
don't we do it after?
Okay, so we are going to move to our first presentation for the evening, which will, do you want to come to the table? Great. You're Iverson,
Yeah,
Hi.
I'm Mandy.
representing Iverson. Okay, great. Nice to meet you. You're next. You're on deck. Hi.
Hi, I'm Rich Bartels. I think you all have heard from me before. I know Nick pretty well, and I appreciate taking the time. You guys really do an amazing job here with attention to detail that I find excruciatingly painful.
Appreciate
But
it.
I understand somebody has to do it, and I appreciate you all doing it, so thank you. I'm here to talk about the Ledges project to separate a piece of land from our PRD and ask that it be then rezoned from PRD to residential 20. And it's the same two articles that were in the original warrant that we postponed because we didn't do adequate enough homework in terms of trying to find out all the possible nuances with regard to seeking to sell this piece of property. So with that, one of the first things that was pointed out is I needed to really reach out to the neighbors, and I did so. I sent out 10 letters to the neighbors, and I only found one neighbor, a butter, responding in the 10 letters, and that happens to be the person in directly abutting that lives in the house, number 33. And number 33, we met on Saturday, and Christian and Dominique are very interested in seeing this property be approved for separation and then permitted to be rezoned, because they'd be interested in buying it themselves and then sitting on it until they decide whether they're going to stay or move, but in the meantime be able to use it as their own if they want to have gardens or they want to have an expanded lawn, if they want to park cars there. They have an RV that is prominently in their front yard, and they'd like to be able to perhaps move that over to the side. So they were very much in favor and asked that I share that fact that they are in favor. I heard from no one else on this, and I figured, 10 days, 2 weeks, I would have heard from somebody who was objecting about that in the neighborhood. The second thing is that I was invited by John Subir to listen to a particular section of the December 19th Housing Partnership Board meeting. And in the Housing Partnership Board meeting, they passed around a conversation or had a discussion about the Ledge's proposal. And everyone that spoke up and said that we understand the only reason that the Ledges wants to sell this property to replenish their reserve fund is because they'd spent all the money in the reserve fund on fighting the 40B project of 416 Cambridge Road. And in fact, that was completely inaccurate, and I was not sure where that came from, but I do know for a fact that there were 3 particular assessments made of the 110 units at the Ledges in order to pay for the legal expenses, to discuss and to make sure we had a seat at the table for the project. We knew that the 40B aspect of the building was not going to be changed or altered in any way, and that was fine. What we were more concerned about was the density, the number of units that were going to be put into the property, and we were more concerned about the fact that there wasn't going to be enough adequate parking, which is pretty much of a big problem around here in Winchester, especially in downtown. But we were there to try and get a seat at the table, and we didn't get any response until we actually brought legal action initially. And then we were heard and denied limiting the number of units, and they permitted the 96. We were heard, and they did not permit the extension of the roof above a certain level. We were worried about the ability to get a fire truck into the property and be able to turn it around, but they can't. They can only go in and come out if there's a problem. We were concerned about parking on the streets, and we're working with the parking officer here in town, and we understand now about the rules about having towing companies if necessary to have if people tend to use our guest parking as their parking and that kind of thing. But we did not spend a dime of the reserve fund on these legal expenses. We paid for them with 3 different assessments. So it's not inexpensive, but I was there for the third one, and it's part of the process of living in a condo complex. So what I'd like to hear is what you folks think, in addition, we might need to get to yes in terms of allowing us to separate the property and sell it. We have 85 units, 81% of the common area in favor of selling it. We have to get the town meeting to vote to allow it to happen, and it has to be a 2/3 majority. So it's a supermajority. And I plan to send out another email, but I want to be able to address any concerns that I might hear from the planning board and see if I can address them when I send things out.
I appreciate all the time that you've put into this and all the work that you're doing, making sure that you've talked to the neighbors, and I know you've also done work with the conservation restrictions, and I know you're covering your bases. You heard the feedback, and you're doing a ton of work here, so I appreciate it and taking the time tonight.
I appreciate that. I've been working hard on the conservation easement, and this restriction. I have responded to Elaine with 15 of her points. She asked me questions, tried to answer every single one of them.
She fires them off.
If I understand correctly, the recreational easement is, you're setting aside land that you have, and you're going to be putting some restrictions on it so it stays as a recreational area.
That's correct. There's a section on the, everybody thinks of it as north, but it's actually southwest. It's the corner up closest to Woburn at the top end of our property. If you're standing at the bottom of the hill looking up, it's in the southwest section. But there's 4.6 acres that we're setting aside there. And then there's also a smaller section of about half an acre that is available on Aristotle, where people would be able to access next to 14 Aristotle to go into the property. What I didn't understand was that the Suckerbrook Reservation extended behind the houses on Aristotle, and it goes out towards Johnson Road, and realized that that was not private property, but actually part of the reservation. And so we understand how people will want to be able to get up through there, too. I mean, I've seen some beautiful herd of deer. I haven't seen a lot of coyotes up there. But, they're all in that area. And I'm a very big fan of preserving this space. And if you go to my Instagram or you go to my Facebook at Rich Bartels, you'll see I have about 6 trail cameras which capture the 21 different varieties of animals that I've been able to observe. My prize was catching one bobcat run across the trail. But, to me, it's a really pretty, beautiful spot, and I'd love to be able to see people share it, and so I want to make sure that that happens, and it should have happened a long time ago. It hasn't, but we're getting close on that.
Right.
So I want to bring us back to this the part that you want to sell, because that, as far as I understand, that's far away from the nature preserve you're setting up.
Correct.
While you spoke with the abutters, there's no guarantee they're going to be able to get that property. So presumably it will be on the open market, and while they wish to buy it, there's no guarantee they will. So I have to, when I look at how I come to my opinion on this, I can't take their wishes are, they may not be able to afford it, in which case you will have a large building built there regardless of their wishes. Two of the things that came up when we looked at this last time was the original agreement, which I don't have in front of me, but I think there was an agreement which talked about a maximum density on the land, as well as the maintenance of all of the green space, in that the land which was not covered by buildings would be put into green space. And so in my mind, this goes against those two things. It is increasing the density, and it is removing a common area from green space in order. So those are the, you know, those were the, at least the two stipulations in the original agreement, which I don't know that you can address, because what you're doing essentially is going against those two stipulations.
Well, in the agreement, which I have here, if you'd like to read it, it says if we'd like to make a change to those stipulations, we have to get permission from the town meeting. And so that's what we're doing, is we're asking for permission to change those stipulations. One of them, yes, is density. Now, we have 56 plus acres, and the PRD requires 1 acre for every 2 units. So we could have no more than 110 units on 55 acres. So we could then have basically an acre and plus left over, and still be part of the, meet the density requirements of the PRD.
So my recollection was that you were actually, that the PRD had a density greater than what was allowed in the agreement.
No, the PRD requires 55 acres.
The PRD requires, but with the agreement that, the subdivision agreement, didn't it have a lower density?
No, it has
No?
56.5
Okay.
acres.
And that's, I wish we had that document available, because I don't have it on this computer. So while I agree, yes, you were given the option of going to town meeting to change those, I have a difficulty with the fact that this development was allowed, and town meeting may have a different opinion than mine, but I'm still struggling with those 2 points.
Okay, I understand.
And so that's all I really have to say.
Okay.
The other issue that we had raised is whether we want to set the precedent that we are rezoning to areas of the, I mean, I don't think have we done this for another, is there, what's another
Yeah, I
PRD
mean,
in town?
The other thing we talked about is how many, I mean, we have, one could imagine incrementally going and chopping up and chopping off more and more of the lot, keeping it within the PRD. Obviously, every time you do that, you'd be going through town meeting, which after a while, then we get tired of it. But, you know, once we allow this sort of a chopping up of the properties, to me, it does say that we have to consider what the ramifications are for others.
Okay, well, in terms of the PRD, on which Ledges sits, I went through very carefully, knowing what requirements there were for a building and building lot, and I could find no other spot where we could sell a piece of property ever again. This is one spot that can be found, it can be permitted to be sold and not violate conservation problems. It would not be a restriction in terms of things that would require a variance request, you know, because there's no other place where I can get 120 feet frontage, 123 feet through, whether I can get a proper amount of property that this 20,000 square feet can sit on. You have to think of it as an envelope in which the 20,000 square feet has to fit, because you have to have certain setbacks from conservation, setbacks from other areas of the PRD common space that the Ledges has. So all of these things fit in. There was one other proposal that my surveyor suggested. Well, you could get two, he said, but you'd have to be able to access the second one by driving on a driveway through the first one. And then it would also involve a significant amount of impact on the portion of the 96,000 square feet that is in that area that would be really impacted by, or impacting the conservation setbacks that would have to get full variances for. So he said, we're not going to do it. It's too much brain damage. So we're looking at one. I brought down a builder, developer to take a look at the property, and he said you can bring your driveway in this way, and then you can site the house in this fashion to keep it even further away from any of the conservation area. You can enter the driveway from here, and you could put the house, instead of front this way, you could put it on a side setup, and it would be able to allow a house to be built there and not to impact the conservation area or really minimize the whole site clearing requirements, because he felt that you're driving in and then there's a natural drop-off of about 6 feet. And he figures that was a good place to put the foundation to allow you to have access out the back and out to the side. So, he looked it over. The folks from 33 said there's one tree that they'd really want to make sure was not impacted, and I'm having them mark that tree to make sure with the developers that it wouldn't have to be. Talking to them about things, they were concerned about the site and where it would be seen, and they felt that the rise, the berm between the two houses, or between the lot and their house, would effectively screen the property.
How many units do you currently have?
110.
Okay, so that was
I'm sorry.
so you'd have, that's why you have to I'm looking at the original covenant and trying to find the number that the was looking for.
It was 110 in the original covenant.
Yeah, 110. We were told
30-year sunset.
Is this original covenant?
The original
We wanted the original covenant to figure out the spirit of that lot.
Oh, I remember this. I was there for these.
Right.
Oh, I
I
remember
know,
the
that's
spirit.
why, I'm just sort of bringing it back to the fact that we were trying to figure out if the reason that we required that lot be left undeveloped was to buffer the neighborhood from a high-density area. So I'm looking back at the original covenant to see if we can answer Diev's question, or your efforts are noted and appreciated, and I think the issues haven't changed. Any other questions we can ask that would help us
I just
clarify?
want to add, to be clear, your reason for wanting to sell this, despite what anybody in the Housing Partnership Board meeting may have said, wouldn't play into any opinion I would have. So you said that they were claiming, someone was claiming that you want to sell it for what, that would have no bearing. I mean, your reason for wanting to do it shouldn't play into whether we want to support such this or not. So I just don't want you to think that somebody said that. I don't know why they said that. That's for them to say or not, but that doesn't impact us.
I think that the reason that they were all saying this was because they're thinking about a linkage fee that they think we should pay in order to be permitted to offer this property for sale.
That's not the opinion of this board, though. That's a relationship you have with Housing Partnership.
That's all I want to be clear.
I have hearing aids.
That's it. Oh, sorry. And I shouldn't be mumbling anyway. That's not, the linkage fee issue is separate from the planning board. That's not our issues.
I was in that housing partnership. When I did speak, it was that I said that what you're doing with the money isn't part of what we need to be thinking about.
That's what I was trying to get at right here.
It's nothing to do with whatever you guys want to build a new clubhouse or improve the clubhouse, or whatever,
Yeah. Doesn't really
repaving,
matter,
whatever
yeah.
you guys, we'll do some nice landscaping.
I think the practical, I think, again, I think you've done a ton of work kind of making sure that the property has the best relationship possible with all the relevant boards. And I think we're going to wait for an article to come out. We're going to discuss it as a board and we're going to find a recommendation to go forward. I don't think because we are just guarding the zoning is what it is. And we have to go back to your paperwork, your application, the process of the development itself, the relationship to the neighborhood, and our thoughts about whether or not rezoning this sets a precedent that we don't want to have to follow through with other developments, and whether it violates the spirit of the overlay district that was created. So I think the issues are separate from anything that, the sort of two pieces, one of them was, what is the town getting out of this? You've met that one. I mean, you're making sure that you've sort of covered all of the concerns that we had in terms of what's the benefit of this to the town, but we're still left with the question of what does it mean to change the zoning? And
I'm not sure I know what the benefit to the town is.
yeah, and that's,
I mean,
the
that's-
zoning guards part of that.
I mean, part of it is,
What about the recharacterization of the conservation land?
that's a
But it's
separate-
not, they're two separate issues. That's what I'm saying. We
but-
hadn't even seen that. Now we're seeing that piece is satisfied, but there's still the question of the zoning.
That's what that would be the benefit to the town in exchange
But that's going to happen
for.
anyway. That doesn't have anything to do with this.
No, my understanding is that that's.
It doesn't answer the zoning question. It doesn't answer the question of, is it important for us to rezone this parcel? Is it,
Well, the benefit to the town might be that there will be a permanent add to the tax revenue, which is small.
Yeah.
But everybody is looking for where we can get
I
tax
think it
revenue.
would
And
be a
housing.
negative, actually, because once you put a large house in there and you put one kid in that house, it's already net negative to the town.
Well, can I work with you on those numbers?
I don't, sure, but, it's,
There's a gentleman that lives at 17 St. Thomas More. He's one gentleman, he lives in a 6-bedroom house with 5.5 baths and 3 very large garage doors there. If he were to die and someone to buy the house and move in with 6 kids, are they going to sufficiently impact the average cost of educating the kids at Vincent Owen School, or is it going to decrease the average?
it will increase because the median tax revenue for each home is $10,000 or $11,000. I don't know what the exact number is.
Yeah.
That's essentially how much it costs to put a kid through school.
It's more like about 18.
Or,
That 18 is the per student cost, about 18.
yeah, so I'm just saying that from a property tax, we want houses without kids.
But that house is,
That's just from a property
that's
tax.
going to get built there is going to have a tax bill around $30,000.
Right, and they'll probably have a couple of kids in there.
Who
So
might go to
it's-
private school.
They might go to private school, but but the point is that there's simply saying that we're going to build this and you're going to get more money for the town. That's not a given.
So it's not
when I look at this
given
and
that
I
anything
say-
is going to get even built there. If the people who buy the property are interested in keeping it as green space for themselves, they can do that.
If
They asked what we thought that the price might be, and so we have no real clue because we don't know whether we can sell it.
and none of this,
But
we're not
they
in the
said that,
revenue, we're not
if
the
it's going to
select
be $1
board,
million,
we're not the
they're
civil
not going to
committee.
worry about it because they'll pay $1 million for it.
But you have all, so I don't want to go down that route because you have a duty to get the most money for your organization, and once it goes on the open market, you can't control who buys it. So it may, so that's just the way it is. So, I mean,
Can
I would have.
can we control it by giving them a right of first refusal?
That's up to you to determine if you want to do it that way.
Is
That's up to your.
Is that a way that would satisfy your concern?
No, that doesn't satisfy my concerns because I don't know what they're going to do with the land. If they, again, when I look at what's the best use, when I say we're giving you the opportunity to raise money for your organization in order to handle whatever, and we are essentially changing the zoning to do so, what does the town get out of it? Now, if you had said we're going to try to put in an affordable unit on there, that would make my ears perk up a lot more. You can't control who's going to buy that land. So the neighbors may be out, they may not be able to. So if a developer comes in and puts in a large house, I don't see that as a net gain for the town. Because that's not the type of housing that I think we need. And so I weigh that against the detriment of losing the green space and setting precedent. So I personally would like to see the pot sweetened more in terms of what the town needs. And in my mind, I don't think a single house is going to make a difference in terms of the total financial gain to the town, in terms of, 2 or 3 more kids in the school, one way or the other is a wash. But in terms of putting in affordable units, that's be a big win. Now, that's a different road to go down. And
What about a market rate fourplex?
To me, that would sweeten the pot. That would make me look twice and say, maybe this is worth it.
That might.
For me to say,
Might get some more
the town
neighbor
is getting something out of this.
Yeah, you'd hear we'd meet the neighbors. That's exciting.
You might get some more. Other people would.
Okay,
would
bottom
perk
line,
up
we
as
haven't seen the article. We will
Yep.
debate this as a board once we see the
Yeah,
article. But you can see where we are, which is we're left with the zoning piece and the questions haven't
So
changed.
one part of my further homework then is to find out how many other PRD are in Winchester and how many of them have potential property that they could sell and would have to come to the planning board to get rezoned in order to sell.
I think that would be great if you would do that legwork for us. I can't promise you any votes from it, but I think it would,
Well, I don't know whether or not there's any other 55
Right.
plus acreage on which
Right.
property has been developed up here. So.
Do you know? I don't know.
Nothing comes
Nothing
to
comes to
mind.
mind. How big's
When I think
Winter
about people with extra land,
PRD.
there are some.
But are they already zoned PRD?
I believe so.
No, I don't think so either, but I'll look. Okay,
Thank you for coming in.
thanks very much for taking your time. Thank you.
Okay, we've met Mandy. Are you Iverson? Yes, I am. Okay, come on up. Hello, welcome.
Oh, thank you for
I'm Carrie.
having
We
us.
spoke on the phone. Thanks for taking the time to come in.
We've already enjoyed the ramen.
Nice.
Both. Karma
It was,
as well. I see
very,
you're
very, very
repping
delicious.
Karma this evening.
Thank you.
Could you guys identify yourself for the?
Yeah.
Can I give you some documents which I have prepared?
Yes, just
I don't
give
have
us
enough
your.
copy, but I have 3 copies.
But for the
Okay,
record,
great. Just your
your names and,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
who you're with.
Okay, this is Mandy. I'm from Kyo Ramen, and I'm with Iverson.
Great.
Yep.
And Iverson is.
I'm the co-owner of the Q Ramen and also the owner of Karma Restaurant in
Great.
town. Yeah.
Which the town is greatly enjoying, both establishments.
Wonderful.
Wonderful assets to the
Thank
community.
you.
So the question that we have here today is what's going on with the windows. We have opaque window coverings and you're changing them anyway because it says coming soon and you're here. So
Yes.
the rule for the CBD is 70% transparency for the windows so that we can see your absolutely gorgeous space. And then from the board's perspective, we are deciding, we want to be careful about the process here, if whether we're approving it, whether we're getting feedback from the CBDRS, or whether we're having design review weigh in. I could go a lot of ways.
I think
Thank you.
CBDRS has to kick in on these. Or is this-
So I do have some picture of the interior and
very cool.
the exterior window wrap that I also printed out with the sizes and some of the documents from Boston Globe and some journal. Because we're open on December 15th and we've been open for a month and a half for now. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
And
this is
that picture,
Brookline. This
that is
is-
actually what the brand want us to put in versus that. So instead of having it like exterior, the exterior with the bamboo, which it might damage the exterior building, which that's why we thought of an idea of the window wrap instead.
So this is an opaque covering, so this does not meet the standards for the, so we can't see in. So what is this?
Picture that you have.
Oh, it's under here. One, yeah, there.
They wanted them to do.
Okay, so this is what was requested, and the window wrap is sort of the answer to what was requested.
That one, the one on your left hand. Yep.
Okay.
Which one was requested?
So this was the design that was, this is for your Brookline location?
No, so actually, we are the franchisee of the Q Ramen, right? So
Oh, I see,
the
okay.
Q Ramen, they're iconic. The storefront design is using the wood slat, individual wood slat,
I
to
see.
create that kind of like a Japanese vibe
Yes.
ramen place.
Okay.
So we understand we are located in the center of the historical district.
Right.
Then we are proposing using some graphic. It got some Japanese elements on it, but we don't want to far apart from the
Okay.
total branding. So that the second page you hold on the left hand, that's our proposing. The
Okay.
right hand, it's the
Franchise
original
standard.
design. We are supposed to do it that way.
Okay.
So the concern is that if you did it with the actual bamboo, that you would injure the building?
Potentially, because you have to secure the bamboo to the building, right?
Okay.
So in order to minimize the damage, so wrapping is the most easiest, convenient way, and it's not permanent, and that's what we can think of.
So can we do a window wrap that is this with this cutout? I mean, you have a cutout here where you have the bamboo exterior, and then there's you can see sort of into the restaurant. So is there a way to allow people, like, cut the wrap, or?
Can you just,
Done.
I see this, this bamboo finish here, can you just put it on the inside?
Yeah, can you put it in the windows?
And then you can, you'll see through it. I understand the owner of the building may have some issues about drilling, applying this, but on the inside,
So if we're gonna put it inside, it really doesn't give that kind of the final design look, the wow effect to it, because the cleaning will be a
I
challenge.
mean, this is
right?
your wow effect. People being able to see
Right, but-
this inside
But,
is sort of.
but I think we're looking at as the new customer, you've never been to that before. We try to create some like a eye catching. It's a part of the branding, right? So
Right.
now rather we using the wrap, it's say coming soon. That's coming left from construction. So obviously we need to take that down, right? Then we just want to present a better looking graphic to replace that.
I gotta tell you, if I see a window wrap, I'm not gonna think high quality.
Right. I
So-
agree with
so-
that.
So this is the option. So
Yeah.
if you can allow us to build something like a bamboo around that building, yes, that would be terrific. I think that we discussed in a long time ago when we were applying for the signage.
So what you're thinking, so
You can see the bamboo, it's not just like lined up with our storefront. It actually it elevates. It kind of like go higher
Right.
and go wider. So
so I hear two concerns. One
Yeah.
is whether or not this would pass review in terms of the design, and the other one, but this would also have the problem you mentioned where you would have to attach it to the building.
yeah.
So if you're concerned about attaching to the building, then you can't do this regardless of whether the design is acceptable.
I mean, attached to building, similar like my Karma storefront, we have like a two gigantic the copper plate. Yeah, it's mounted to the building, but it's a great fixture. It's not gonna protrude to the sidewalk, but it's a nice decoration part of the building. So we can do that same thing if we can go this route, you know.
Okay, so you led saying technically it might be difficult and damage the building, but it seems like it would actually be possible to do so without damaging.
No, before we was told that this is a historical, so we are trying to not to damage the building. So that's the reason we come up with the plan using this is a vinyl wrap that.
So the aesthetic, like the plan for the CBD, is to engage the people walking by showing them what's happening inside the building. That's why we don't allow opaque window coverings. We've gone through this with a couple of buildings. We want people to see inside so that the engagement is across the front of the building.
What's the address of that?
538 Main Street. Okay. So
To the left of Starbucks.
right in the center, so we have these two small windows, which we have kind of faded out so people can actually see us inside and outside.
Yeah.
And because so from the window above, the sidewalk is 24 inches, and our table is 30 inches. So while we sit, and if if anybody passing by, they actually see
People's legs.
Yeah, so this is something.
That's where the 70% calculation comes in, is you would cover sort of like, you could do your bamboo fringe at the bottom and your bamboo at the top and then maybe on the sides, but you're still leaving 70%.
Yeah, and with the honeycomb design, so with the honeycomb is on the left side when you enter the
right.
restaurant.
Oh, I know.
And on that side, if we have to expose the honeycomb structure, it doesn't really look good from the window. If you have to
But this
look
is
in,
still,
yeah.
I mean, you're still drawing it. This would be the view, right?
If
Is that straight?
from the
Is
front
that
door?
straight ahead?
this is the front door when you when you
Yeah,
enter.
so you would be engaging
and
with
then
this.
on over here, this is our honeycomb.
Right.
So, like, it will,
I mean, 70. I don't feel ready to do the math, but if your honeycomb is over here and you expose this, that might be 70%.
so if it's for the whole window wrap, it's about 150 square feet.
Yep.
And if we have to do 70%, we will have to remove the two small windows on the side. Then we will have it covered 70%.
No, uncovered. 70%
Oh,
transparency.
uncovered. Oh.
Yes, backwards. We're asking for
You get
70% where you
30%.
can see through.
That's all you got is 30%.
So let me explain to you another important information. Why we needed this, because right here, this is our the hose stands, right?
Right.
So if we're gonna expose too much, people walking by, they see your cash drawer right there, right? That's the one thing. The second thing is there's a demise wall right here. So if we open up, you just see the construction wall exposed with the metal stud inside. It's just very ugly looking. That's the biggest challenge. I mean, honeycomb, that people like it. Yes, I agree with you. Definitely, it's a great feature to showcase that.
I mean, it's a super wow. Your entire restaurant is beautiful. There's not
but
a
the thing is,
dent
we
in it.
try to make the balance on the both sides. We try to make it symmetrical looking. You know, that's why we come up with this kind of graphic. It will cover nicely. And
But imagine walking down the middle of Main Street if we allow everyone to wrap their windows. You feel like you're in a tunnel. We don't want a tunnel. That's the point. Everyone would be allowed to wrap their windows, and it would feel like we're in a red light district somewhere.
And to be honest, it's unfortunate at this point you already have this ugly looking wall you have to cover up. But we can't change the amount of window because that's the design you chose, in the sense that, we want to have a view into that place. So there are ways of providing security for your cashier. Again, you could put something inside, which is a wooden panel or something. That would still give you some depth.
So let me ask you, instead of putting this the vinyl graphic wrap, can we just do all the vertical wood, just like a?
if you
Across
get-
30% of it.
If you can,
Yes.
if you get 70% visibility through that.
Oh, because there's a gap in between, so everything combined, it would definitely gonna meet that 70%.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you have a 1-inch bamboo and 1-inch
Gap, you would.
gap, you only have 50%. So you'd have,
We can widen up, just like a.
so you could have 1-inch bamboo and maybe
Would you make the door clear?
2 or 3 inches. I don't know what it is.
Oh,
I can't
you
do the
could,
math in my head.
you could, that assumes, this is what we're all talking about, is that these pieces would be full height. If you had more of a design,
Yeah.
and maybe they were shorter at the top, you could
Yeah.
pick up some extra percentage up there.
Yeah, I mean, if
Or,
you-
you know, you could vary,
Yeah, because you obviously have this concern that the tables are higher than you want to provide privacy for your customers who are seated by the windows. So that would be solid.
or it could be just a higher density.
Yeah,
You
or
could
higher-
have, you could have a pattern of.
Yes,
And that could be a little higher, and it could diminish as you rise,
yeah.
and you might.
Small towns have they're tricky.
For me, the big concern
get
is
that.
that we follow the 70%, because if we don't, then the pizza place across the street's
It's
going
a
to see
wrap
that,
of
and they're going to
pizza,
want
it's
to
a
put a
wrap of
pizza wrap
books,
on
it's a
theirs.
wrap of
And it might look
ramen.
nice, but it then goes down to the ice cream place is going to want to do the same thing. And we're trying to make like this enlivened streetscape where you walk down, you see people eating, you say, hey, I want to go in there, as opposed to just a door that you knock on that you can't see through. I think it's part of what we're trying to do downtown.
Is this actually in Brookline or on Chesterfield?
That's in.
No, I think that's in New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one of these.
And the one thing is, even though we're fully wrapped with the coming soon sign, we still get a lot of people coming in to enjoy our food.
No, we know you're thriving. We're clear about that.
And we know your food is delicious. This is not a question about.
And I don't think the transparency is going to hurt the popularity of your ramen place.
Yeah,
based on, I mean, everyone
I
is
do
calling
see
it a
the option,
destination.
like open up the top portion of it, give a 70% that, because we don't have a nice, we don't have something very eye-catching from the sitting side. So when you just open up the portion of it, it will look very strange from outside, you know?
So it could be a top bottom. I mean, we're probably not like like the bamboo with. This is like, you don't want me doing aesthetics on your
You
building.
have a skilled designer who did this.
I know this is.
I think that person could come up with a covering for your windows, which would,
What about covering the green top with the vertical bamboo, and then having a narrow side on either side, kind of like the New York one? And then there are windows in the middle, possibly. I don't know.
I think the, I don't know what their thinking is over there about the universal sort of signage, but I think an architect could,
There's a
given the criteria, could sit down
I mean,
and
I
come up
think-
with
something cool.
3 proposals.
I think the takeaway from here is we're not big fans of the vinyl wrap. That we would like to see some sort of something which is, obviously, you can see into it. We would prefer some three-dimensional thing rather than something that's flat. And that you have a lot of, within those constraints, you have a lot of freedom to do something.
So we have the next step for reviewing the design would be on February 20th. We have a convening of something called the CBDRS, which is the Center Business District Review Subcommittee, and that includes people from the Design Review Committee and Historic Commission. So they would be able to speak to how to preserve the building, and they're much better with sort of creative ideas about making sure that branding and aesthetics of the town come together. So I would suggest coming up with whatever you can for adjustments to the design that would allow 70% 70% transparency or as close, I mean, maybe there's a concession, but it won't be 100%. We won't, 100% opaque is going to be,
So there's no like a variance we can try to do.
it's, the CBD here is protected like nothing you've seen in your life.
You know
There's
that. You went
very
through this
little-
with your other store.
Yes.
You recall the 4 months to get your,
Yes.
your,
So
your,
the,
your sliding doors.
so the CBDRS was not convened in time for Karma, which probably would have made your life a bit easier. But because it will be everyone in one room instead of bouncing you between committees, that should be a much more productive experience. We're sort of the, let's hear it and let's decide how to move forward. So February 20th, we can get you on the agenda. And that should be an easier way to get to a decision point.
Just to reiterate the lesson we learned from the last time you went through this process, the board that makes the decision is this board, and I think that it's important that you come up with a better design
What time is that
first.
meeting on the 20th?
So
When you
7
take
p.m.
it to them,
7.
rather than responding immediately to their comments, you come back to this board, because this is the board that makes the decision. And last time, you bounced from historical to design review, back to historical, back to design review. It was a big circle, and eventually came down, and we voted to go with your initial design, I believe.
Right.
So I think in order to cut that circle off, this is the board that makes the decision. So the CBDRS is advisory. They have some good people on there that make some great suggestions, but rather than going back and trying to please them back and forth, come back to this board.
Okay. Actually, I'm going through the same process like in Wellesley. It's
Yeah, well, Wellesley's even
not fun.
more sort of weaponized than we are. So we'll be smaller and friendlier about it, but it's
Where
just,
in
it's,
Wellesley?
Linden Square.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
everybody
It's a great-
looks
oh
at the
my
town
gosh.
and says, I want my business there because it's so cute. This is how we keep it cute. I know. I'm sorry, but the transparency rule is, we just built it for, if you want to move up North Main, it's going to be the same rule, so.
Yeah, there was a rapid pizza place up North Main. Which
I know.
is it's got a price on it, so I don't know what happens when inflation goes up. They have to cut it out of their window
Yeah.
and put a new price.
I don't know if you've been through Woburn, but you know the old CVS?
Yeah,
Have you seen it recently?
no.
They finally found a tenant or someone to
Yeah.
take it over, and they, remember the big windows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're bricked up, and they have these little, like 24-inch by inch donut windows.
Is it the new
They
reptile?
see, like, only 4 of them in the whole building.
Holy
It looks
cow.
horrific. They
Yikes.
just bricked it right up.
Those were nice windows.
Do they have like bars on the front? Because it sounds like it's a jail.
Where is that located?
That's the old CVS in downtown Woburn. on
Downtown
38.
Woburn Center?
Yeah, so you can turn the corner and start heading out to 128. I would drive by it and I think, well, we would not permit that.
Is there anything they need to prep for the CBDRS meeting?
Your new plans and
Yeah,
just
so
everything
so
you can.
I know, but whatever the revised renderings are, if you can get an email copy to the, you have Ian's email, it'll help everyone sort of have their comments ready when you get there.
So if there's someone put some stuff behind a window, if there's something cover the window, big portion, I mean, large portion, will you guys ask them to take it down?
If you were to,
Put something behind, inside the space.
that's kind of what I think I could look at that, you know.
If
But if it's, you have the 70%.
and if there's depth to it, I mean, we had
Yeah, the toy store.
the physical therapy place. I forget what it's called.
Oh, Stretch Med or something.
Stretchman, whatever it is. What we asked them to do was they wanted something of barriers to protect their clients. And so what they ended up doing is they put in this wooden thing about 10 feet in, and then between the windows and that thing was where they had their seating for people waiting to go in. But it allowed them to have, you could see in. I mean, if it were like 2 inches from the window, it would not have been acceptable.
Yeah,
The
so if you had a
idea is-
bamboo curtain that was set, bamboo, whatever, holding
Yeah,
pattern.
I mean, the idea is that you want people to get the feeling that the inside is part of the outside at some level. You want that sort of fluid sort of feeling that So it's not like this wall that's keeping you out and it's preventing. I mean, the idea is to enliven, which requires you to have some sort of communication between inside and out. So, I mean, there are, if you walk in downtown, there are places which put up completely, there's a workout place down over by.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I forget what it's
The
called.
women's fitness place?
Yeah, and it's completely shadowed, and it's completely, there's no life there. It's like a dead part of the block. There's nothing there.
What's Wellesley's requirement, out of curiosity?
Oh my.
Yeah, all right,
I
so
don't
we're the
wanna
nice
talk
ones.
about that. Yeah, same thing. Like
We have a bowl of Pepto-Bismol as you
multiple
leave.
hearing, and finally they approved the first plan I presented. I just very time consuming. It's frustrated, but what I gonna say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pretty town.
I know, but for our small business, it's tough. We are
tough.
a restaurant guy. We are not.
I know,
we
design
don't know the
folks, I
municipal
know.
regulation, and it's not our specialty.
Well, but
It's-
Well, know that that's why we keep
Right,
trying to
but-
make it
but,
easier.
Nowadays every single small change is very costly.
the guy who did this, this,
But that's,
this is-
it's a franchise, so that's
Yeah.
probably one main.
but I
is
mean,
that.
there's some real expertise here.
Yeah, you've got quality designers somewhere
Yeah,
in
but they
the
already
chain.
kind of like cookie cutter kind
Yeah.
of from outer store. But what I'm saying
But they should
is-
give you three choices, because small towns are always like this. So they should say your window designs can be one of these three things.
Right.
They should know this. This is not unique to Winchester.
So how much of this has to get approved by the company? So they've given you, we want you to do this, and you come up with an alternative, and it goes through this board, and then you go back to the company, and then they say, no, that's not good enough?
So you haven't compromised that, because we in the town of Winchester, we definitely gonna comply with the local policy. Like when we presented the first idea, that was the original. That we were supposed to look like that.
Yeah.
But we've been through this. We understand that's not feasible in Winchester. So we cancel that plan. We come up with something different, something much convenient for us. Also good for the landlord, not damaging anything. Then
Yeah,
That's-
if there's another layer of approval, if you have to go up the corporate ladder to get it approved, because you're just a franchisee, at some point, they're going to say, if it has no relationship to what they want, they may say you can't do that.
After they get approval.
I don't know how much freedom you have to choose what the front looks like.
I mean, is there a,
That'd be good.
I don't know, I mean, is there a wrap pattern which could get you the 70%, perhaps? And might satisfy?
I mean, it's just math.
Well, yes, yeah, I was thinking of the
Get an
software.
X-Acto knife?
Yeah, right. I understand absolutely about the cost of engaging architects and designers as they, explore it at tremendous expense. We're going to explore that together. Let's go look at that. Even though they sometimes know where they're going to end up. And, doing something with a graphic is a little easier, less expensive. Easier to go from presentation to us to an actual reality. It's scaling, it's not fabricating. I think I would look at something like that.
So the quickest timeline we could offer you would be a different rendering for the CBDRS meeting on the 20th, and then you could be back before us on March 4th.
Okay. And if you aren't ready by the 20th, the CBDRS, I think is
They meet
planning on meeting
monthly.
every month.
So the
Once a
biggest
month.
reason we're here today, like Mandy mentioned, we've been open for a while. We have that the wrap outside. He's still saying coming soon. It's
Right.
confusing
Yeah.
customer, and we are afraid to take it out because it doesn't create that intimacy inside the room. When you have all the natural light coming, we don't have a window treatment inside. So when you taking all the wraps out, right? So when you think about it, when you sitting in there, you just feel like the lighting is not right. The something's not right.
There is a Japanese aesthetic that values a sort of private intimacy.
Yeah, so the Japanese dining, it's very intimate. It's a cozy, that kind of like that atmosphere we want to create. It's unlike the most like other cuisine. They don't really care as much, but this is very particular. That's the reason why we want to get this approval. Then we can announce like the opening day, because at the very beginning we're just saying it's a test run. But we cannot just keep testing
Testing
forever,
forever, yeah.
right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for us. It doesn't make sense for the clientele. So we just want to know what's the direction and how quickly we can get this resolved, and then we can announce that we are ready to open. We are kind of like
So that's the quickest. I can tell you, if you go to the CBDRS with an opaque window wrap, you're going to get kicked out a month.
Yeah.
So I would come as close as you can to 70% by February 20th, and then we can approve it on March 1st.
70% transparency.
70% transparency.
I'm not familiar. Is this for the facade or the glazing?
Specifically windows.
Would they allow like a grid with rice paper on it?
the rice paper.
Yeah, with the crisscross.
Oh, yeah, I see. But that's still not going to get approval anyway, right? Because rice paper is not transparent, 70%.
Well, I mean, you could. I mean, I don't know. I can't. Dimensions. How far in? I know you can't just put like a screen. People are going to knock it over. You're going to be clobbering customers left, right, and center. Like I would think about: is there a depth you can create?
Because like you've been to Karma, you've been to the ramen place. We are so focusing on the customer experience way besides just the food, right? So when you're sitting there, we want you experience. You have a nice atmosphere, the lighting and the music, the vibe is right. So that's the biggest reason we feel like when we take this out, it's going to ruin that. Someone facing, it doesn't feel like same when I eating last time. That's our concern. That's our biggest concern. It's not like we want to get this done cheap way, and we don't want to just do it shortcut, But we just want to thinking how we can differentiate ourselves with the others competitors, because it's very competitive industry.
I mean, it may need to be a movable, like either a shade or blinds that can move with the sun, so you're not getting sort of like.
Yeah, I understand that we want to build up some communication from the outside and inside, but once the customer sitting in, they don't really care about outside. They just want to care about when I'm sitting here. I just want to enjoy this.
So is there a way of using layers to get to where you need to be? So you have the 70% transparency at the windows, and then you institute another layer inside, which reduces that.
So that's the reason I asked you a little bit earlier. If we applied certain like window treatment inside the layer, kind of like a block, like a sun block, would I consider not being approval solution? Because we have to build something treatment.
Yeah, it can't be completely opaque, because then we're not getting the transparency into there. So coming up with, I believe at the physical therapy place, they came up with slats. And so there was some transparency it provided. So what you do is you start introducing more opaqueness as you go in, and so by the time you get to where the customer is, they will not see the 100% or 70% transparency.
What about like they have those level or blinds that open from the top and open from the bottom, and then you can adjust them to get to the level of intimacy that in the lighting that you're looking for. But it may be tricky because it does give you the option to go less than 70% by having those.
And it doesn't. Yeah.
I mean, I think the problem is, I think that you need a professional to look at this.
Yeah, we're not.
I don't know that we
Very
can.
professional, very professional, because there are so many factors you need to put in consideration besides just the regulation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like the other small business in town, but they are different. They are hourly different. Their business hour different. Their client different, right? Because we are food guys, so we focus on our timing is different. Our business time is nighttime. Late afternoon, nighttime. So that kind of timing, the natural light, the glare coming in, it really changing the effect about how you feel when you're eating
Understood,
inside.
understood.
That's how I look at that, more professionally, right?
I wonder if reaching out to design review and seeing if there's an individual who's willing to come over before the CBDRS convenes and just knock around ideas with you would be helpful. They're trained. I mean, they can be helpful. You might find a committee member who's willing to stop by while you're there anyway.
I mean, you almost, I think about a wrap that would provide 70%, and I'm thinking you almost need a graphic designer.
But they might be able to say, 4 feet in, you could do this, or at the window, you could do this, or think about this for your, and then you're bringing a targeted thing to your person you're hiring to do the aesthetic instead of saying, what ideas do we have?
Right.
I don't know if you can, I don't know how willing they are to do that, but it might say, I'm trying to save you steps anywhere I can, I'm
We
sorry.
appreciate that. That's the biggest reason why we want to better understand, communicate with every individual here. Then we can give a more clear picture, the vision to the designer, because we don't want a designer design something which is not going to work for us and it's just time consuming. It's a very frustrated process, just keep going.
So, I think what has come out in our discussion is the importance of what the customer experience is.
Right.
And how you want the windows to work with that.
Exactly.
And so that's something that, we're still stuck with the 70%, but coming up with a way of creating the environment you want with that, I think if you bring that up, that's the important part right now.
It is important, yeah.
But and it wasn't that obvious when you came in and you said, this is what corporate wants, and this is, so understanding more of what you're trying to get at, I think is important when you discuss this
Right.
at the CBDRS, is saying, here are our constraints in terms of what we want the experience to be. How do we reach some sort of a design which works?
Yeah, so over a year, like at Karma, we are so focused on this. So that's the biggest reason why even we are doing the franchise ramen, we don't want to just do like a regular standard. We really want to elevate that. We want to bring to another level. So in order to do that, details make difference. So like little details, that's why we so focus on. That's why we want to do the right thing for our clientele. That's how we get repeat customer. That's how we look at it. So I appreciate the advice. So let's work on that to see how we can improve this. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming in. So TBD, so Ian will reach out with anything that you need to do to prep, but he's your guy for now.
Okay. Thanks
Okay,
again, guys.
nice to meet you both. Thank you for coming in.
And I can talk to people.
Zero vegetarian.
Is it Philip or Richard?
Yeah, the CBDRS should be a
I'm
mobile
hoping
one.
they have vegetarian food.
Yeah, I think so.
At this place.
Not a lot. Not a lot.
Where? At the ramen place?
One vegetarian
the day.
ramen bowl. So you get the one.
I got the one.
You get the
Full
one. That's what I
disclosure,
got.
my family loves it. I have celiac and they took the tea off of me because it's barley tea, apparently. I was given water with lemon to drink. So I love the atmosphere. My family are huge fans, but I can't even drink the tea there. So.
No.
But I do love it. And karma's delicious.
Yeah. Karma looked really good.
There's the egg thing that my wife, we asked her if it had any flour in it. She ended up getting it, although she's
No, I have celiac. I'm
she's
not
gluten
just-
sensitive. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm like hazmat suit.
Yeah.
It's not
Can
that
we get a
bad.
Can we get a picture of you in a hazmat suit?
I will bring that next time. I will do a slideshow. All right. Where are we, folks? Brian has an exciting update for us.
Do have exciting update about the economic feasibility analysis that I've been working on for a long time. I've been going back and forth with Mark and I believe it was Steve, but now the other name, from Food Care Planning. They are the people who did the economic feasibility analysis a year ago for us.
Oh, and they never got back to us when Taylor asked them.
So he reached out to them, and they didn't respond to the RFP.
Okay.
But then, when the only response to the RFP was significantly more than our budget, he reached out to them, and they said, "We think we can do it for under the bidding amount." So I reached back and forth with them, and they have offered to complete the work for $7,500.
Half?
half the price that we put aside, and it was the other group, which was the
Hold on.
MAPC, who gave us the bid for $15,000, then came back and said, well, actually, it's going to be 25 now that we think about it.
25.
So we'd like to reopen the idea of a
25,000.
planning board retreat. I'm just kidding.
So I've got a scope of services that I just want to read it because I want to make sure, because I want to make sure this, because they're going to do it within a month. We're going to have this in time to have something for Springtown meeting. Scope of service is to undertake an economic feasibility analysis for developments of 6 or more units, rounding up 0.5 or higher, with a requirement of 10% at 80% AMI. In addition, review projects of 25 units or more with a requirement of 10% at 80% AMI and 5% at 120% AMI. The analysis will be for both rental and owner-occupied units. This analysis will be run at the noted densities and, if necessary, on other densities until it's shown to be economically viable. We'll use the most up-to-date HUD affordable requirements for the community, 80% AMI and 120% AMI.
So why are we doing the 25 units and above?
Because we have that also rounding down.
No.
Yes, it does. If you read what we have, it rounds down. So I will pull it up because I've got
Because one of the, so I went, they, ugh.
what we have in our bylaw.
Oh, what's in our bylaw, but their original study rounded up.
The original study rounded up, but our bylaw rounds down.
Right, but we don't need to do the 25 units and above because they've already done it rounding up.
But they did that with the 10 rounding down, though, at the same time.
They rounded everything up. If you read their EFA, it actually says we rounded up.
Then why did we do any of this? Why don't we just submit that again?
Because we don't have anything below 10 units. We have, they did not go down as low as 6 units. They started, I think, at 10 or 15. And they did not go down as low as 6.
So we, in our,
That's one of the things I spoke to them about, how they rounded, because, and they said, yeah, we are always conservative, we always rounded up. But they just didn't start at a low enough number of units.
in our bylaw,
Yeah, the bylaw,
why did we round down? If the number of affordable units calculated contains a decimal, the number of units shall be rounded down. Why didn't we round up the workforce units in that bylaw then?
I think because of what was allowed by the state, and I think there was we didn't follow. Why don't we talk about this offline? Because I remember there was a lot of confusion about their numbers, and I remember talking to them about whether they rounded up or down, and they said, no, we rounded up, and that's actually written in the report. So why don't we, I think, before you do that scope of work, let's nail it, because one of the problems we had last time is we never actually got the correct scope of work nailed down, which is why they didn't do it for what we got in the CBD.
So is that not the correct scope of work though?
I think the lower part is, I just don't know if we need to do the upper part. That's the key. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm trying to make it work with my understanding of the analysis they did.
Okay.
So why don't we talk about it offline and make sure that I'm wrong or I'm right or whatever.
You're almost certainly correct.
Oh,
I was trying.
thank you.
I
would not go that
What I
far.
was trying to do with them, and I'm thrilled that they're well under budget and they can complete it in 30 days, and we can have something by Springtown meeting as long as we hit if we hit the Springtown meeting deadline is the 14th of March. So as long as we might have to have a extra meeting to approve something to go on if we don't get it back in time. But what we want, I thought, to match what we have in the rest of the town is the rounding up and rounding down done properly. And we want to start at 6 units and see if that works. And if that doesn't work, then go to 7. If that doesn't work, go 8 until we determine where we can go. Because
We want to know what the minimum number of units is economically feasible.
Correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's,
And matching what we do in the rest of the town, we were targeting 6 as the lowest number. We didn't target 5.
that's correct.
I mean, we could have, but we didn't. And then that's the primary thing we need.
Yeah, my only thought was that if they've done enough to do the other part, then they don't have to charge us for that.
Yeah.
And they better give it to us at a reasonable price, because they have all the data and they've done all the analyses. So this is like 2 hours worth of work for them.
Well, in fairness, they said that the work, they charge by the hour. This is $7,500. They said, we're giving you the high estimate because we're going to do 6. We run the analysis. If that doesn't work, we're then going to move up. He said, if 6 works, we're done with that part of the analysis immediately. Like, we don't need to do anything more.
I mean, to be honest, it's a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I just plug a number in the spreadsheet. So,
I-
yeah.
We've got someone who's willing to do the work for us for $7,500. We had $25,000 was the most recent estimate of someone else doing it.
Brian,
I feel a little like I've
I
gone
applaud
crazy
you.
to get this to work.
I applaud your effort in getting us to this point. I really do.
So let's touch bases. I'd like to move forward with them, ideally as soon as possible, so that we can as soon as feasible.
Why don't we talk about this tomorrow evening?
Yeah.
And I will dig up the EFA, and
I've got the EFA. I'll send you a copy so you don't have to dig it up.
that would be wonderful.
I don't think you need a vote from us. I think you have lots of blessings
Yeah.
from us.
All I want to make sure is the whole board is
Many times.
wants us to move ahead with the caveat that Diab and I will clarify if we need to do something different.
Get
And
after it.
If it turns out we don't need to do the second half of the analysis, we'll just say don't do that. They're only going to bill. They bill us by the hour. They said if it takes less time, they're going to bill us less.
I love that sort, as long as it's not cost plus. Cost minus is great, cost plus is not.
Yeah.
Great, yay. There's one last thing that I want to bring up. I promised John Serbier I would bring this up so that we can decide how to proceed. I'm going to read a short email from him. The development team of Civco and Causeway is preparing a funding application for submission in February to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC. 2 letters of support are being prepared. One will be from the Select Board. The second will be a joint letter signed by other town boards and organizations. Given our past support for the development of the proposed housing in this town-owned Waterfield parcel, is the planning board willing to demonstrate the support by joining the Housing Partnership Board, the Affordable Housing Trust, and others in signing the joint letter? So this is the Waterfield development asking for funding from EOHLC, and any concerns about joining a joint letter with them? I said that I doubted we would write our own, but we would be most likely happy to. Yeah, we want it funded. We want it built.
I move that we sign on to the joint letter.
Great. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Great. Thank you. Any discussion?
I kind of want to read it before we sign it.
We are reading before we sign, right?
Okay, we would.
Oh, yeah, we will get it, but, I mean,
So motion so the motion is assuming that we
That we
all-
agree with signing
we have
what
no,
the letter says.
But let's,
we would like to see a draft before
Yeah.
we sign.
We really hope we're going to really be excited about signing it.
yeah, okay, great. Okay. All
Sorry, I
in
didn't mean to be a
favor?
pain.
Yeah, no, I assume we're going to read it
Yeah,
first.
I assume we're going to read it.
Okay, assuming the
And-
content is amenable to the
It
board.
sounds like-
And if they bring it to a meeting and they bring ice cream as well, then
Yeah.
that's
Yes,
even better.
ice cream, contribution to the retreat fund. Okay, any further questions, concerns, discussion? All
I'm
in
interested
favor?
about this retreat fund.
I'm just, if it's out there, you know.
We all voted aye.
Okay, unanimously joined the meeting. Any other business that I have not gotten to? I haven't thanked.
And Congress.
Yes, 10 Converse is back from the,
They'll be back.
I know.
What goalposts have been passed?
They have a new plan, where they're not doing the conveyor parking anymore. They're relinquishing some units to add for parking, and that might affect their height. So I advise them they need to go back to the planning board. And
So are they withdrawing from the suits they have against the
So
town
it's-
and DEP?
No, that's been resolved.
Oh, it has been resolved.
Yeah, they got a state, go ahead. Yeah.
So what happened? They sued the DEP.
We have lots to learn here. We
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
know.
it's more than we have time to talk about tonight.
But you can tell us what the result of the decisions were.
That the state waived one of the requirements, and
So-
that's why they're able to move forward. I have it in my notes somewhere.
So
in
the
meeting.
state has said that they could move forward.
Yeah.
But what about the suit against the town?
That we did not discuss that.
Because that
So
still isn't, I mean, if they want to redesign this, then presumably they're going to drop that suit.
Yes.
I think it's an interesting
I
thing for this board to be discussing with them while they have an ongoing suit against the town.
Yeah, lots to learn, but they are interested in bringing, well, they're actually not. I think Ian pointed out to them that they should come before the planning board because it is a redesigned project.
Yeah.
Well, it's been how many years since? It's been,
3 years. Is
But
it-
the permit would have been extended because of the,
yeah.
It'll be on pause while they're on suit.
right,
but it
the
was-
timeline
it
would
was
have been
early
22.
23 that they got.
I think I'll have to talk to the
Yeah.
people in the
It was-
building department.
It was 22, I was still on
It was,
Concom, so
they
it
got
was
their
22.
permit April 18th, 2022.
Did they
Yeah,
actually
but then they,
issue a
Then it-
permit?
we issued
Yes,
a
Yes.
permit.
they got a permit.
We issued a permit. Concom did not.
Right.
Right.
So the question is, okay, so the 2 years start from whenever all of their suits have finished. That's when the 2 years.
But they've significantly redesigned it, so they,
That's-
that
then it's a
permit
total-
doesn't.
Right.
That's
so it's
the
a-
Yeah, so they're essentially scrubbing the old projects completely.
There's a lot of similarities, but like fundamentally, it's a different. In my
Well, I
view,
mean,
it's a
that's, the
different.
planning board will have to decide whether it is a different
Right.
project.
That's up to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Right.
But it would be good to know whether they're continuing their suit against the town.
And they're planning to come from March 4th, or we don't know?
They want to
town
build in
has
June,
a
so
waterway
they would like to
protection
get
ordinance
speaking
which
with
talks about
the
views
powers that
of
be
waterways.
as soon as possible. Is what they said.
And so the argument was that the building
In almost
was
a haggling way.
blocking views. And there was a counter argument that they were creating new views. And I don't know,
How did they get a permit if there was this?
because the waterways thing is.
Because planning board and Concom live in completely different
Yeah,
universes.
there was no-
Yeah, so we don't,
Planning board issued
So the
permit.
Concom didn't
Yeah.
issue their decision until the planning board had approved the
yeah,
project.
so the planning board did not,
And so I ran for planning board.
the planning board did not have an issue with.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
back.
they're reigniting it.
Anyway, I'm not here February 18th, so I would love it if we could postpone them to March 4th.
Oh yeah, that's what I will let them know that there's no 18th.
Do we have anything to meet for the 18th for?
So if we don't have that,
Right. Nothing.
who has pressing business for February 18th? I think we will probably leave the meeting for a few days until we sort out whether or not we need it, but there's a possibility February 18th won't be a meeting that we have. If we have it, it may be short.
Unless we do, and we have no ZBA stuff to do?
Well, we
Wouldn't
wouldn't
be
for
till
the
March.
second one. We didn't have any for February. They would have been tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a
I'm
late
just
night.
Wondering if we just clean it up, because March 4th seems to be pretty busy.
March 4th will be busy, but we continued the public hearing to March 4th, so we can't do that earlier. We can't do petitions earlier because we won't have them.
Okay. That's the only thing, is if we don't have
Chiron
petitions till
can't-
March,
They have to
then.
go on
They
the
have to go
20th,
through the
so-
CBD. We've got a couple things who have to go through CBDRS. They meet on the 20th.
The only thing that, so March, so I'm gonna be off the board. Does it make sense?
When
to
is
have
the
ten-
election? What's the date of the election?
I think it's like the 22nd, but let me tell you,
The 22nd of what?
of March. It's the 22nd of March, which is Saturday.
Okay.
So if 10 Converse is coming back, rather than, I mean, can they push it until after the new person is seated? Because it makes no sense for me to be there.
So what might be helpful, because I think they are coming thinking that they're going to proceed with their old permit. So it actually,
the
unfortunately, might be helpful for you to be there.
To decide whether the change is
See if
significant
it's-
enough that they can proceed with their old.
And then
plan.
they would resubmit their application once we have the new board composition. You remember them, I'm sure.
You have the most.
Yeah, so what I'm what I'm taking away from is they have decided to redesign it for reasons other than their issues with the town.
Yeah, why are they?
They're not
redesigning it?
responding to issues that they've litigated with the town.
Well, because a lot of the issues with the conveyor parking is the main, like, that wasn't going.
So they're not going to have the conveyor parking?
No, it's
They'll have
now
real parking,
grade level, or below grade level parking, yeah.
below grade level where you just get to drive in.
Yeah,
But
it's
why-
not,
Why is the conveyor parking? It wasn't part
Oh,
of
it's
that
an
was
issue.
not part of the Concom issue.
that was not part
no,
of
I
it.
know.
No,
They-
that
they-
was an issue, that was an issue.
But it was
It was
resolved.
That's-
resolved,
they didn't
you
bring
guys
up-
approved it.
We approved it, so that's not, so I'm just trying, are they coming back?
they're changing it because, not related to the fact that you guys approved it, because they don't find it feasible.
Right, that's what my point. So
yeah, yeah.
They have a new design because of their internal decision making.
But that affects other things like
But
their
it
height.
wasn't feasible.
Yes,
So
yes,
that's
but it's
the
not in
idea.
response to anything.
No,
the town
no,
did.
sorry, that's not
Okay,
what's going on.
okay,
No, no, no.
That was what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, no, they can't get the people to repair, like, it's just, it wasn't gonna be practical.
Okay.
So that's,
Okay. So they're going to do.
Yeah, that's an accident waiting to happen. I mean,
what, the conveyor?
No,
yeah,
Yeah,
you're going to get stuck, you got to get out and.
Yeah, but it works in all other parts of the world. What is so unique about the
You
US
know
that we
what, you know
can't
what
make
the
it work?
unique thing is?
What?
It works
Where's
in the
the-
US.
Yeah, no, okay, yes. The thing about Winchester is where's the vendor to fix it?
New
Well,
York
that
City,
may
I'm
be the
guessing.
issue, is that,
I mean, that.
We
if
just
you have-
don't.
If, the expense in an elevator, there are two prices for an elevator. There's the price with the 10-year contract for service and the price without. The price without will knock you on the floor. It's about the service. It's very expensive.
okay.
And if you're in Winchester and you have an elevator that people ride up and down, there are lots of vendors. And people can use stairs, you know. With this, there are no vendors.
Right, you're stuck.
And the car can't go in, the car can't go out.
Right.
People can't, I mean, so you need really quick service. And when I looked at that project, it's like, well, one of the things you'd have a difficulty doing is selling it to anybody. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
fair.
know any other.
Right, or they
builder-
would just never use it.
Right,
And,
no, but-
and
no,
you'd park
sell-
across
sell-
the street at the
Jenks.
Jenks Center.
Or sell the project to
Fair,
anybody.
That's what I would do.
You know, there isn't.
and that new parking affects where they're putting their commercial too, actually.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
mention.
it changes
They're,
a
they're
lot.
flipping
It's a
that,
really-
yeah.
It's a huge difference.
Like, that one change is going to affect the rest of
Oh,
the
yeah,
building, so
yeah,
that's why
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
So you actually discussing this would be super helpful because,
Sure, I
because
just,
you have the context of it.
and if it's determined that it's a new submission, then I agree with you. There's no sense you sitting in.
You
on-
shouldn't start a long process, but
Yeah, yeah,
you may have to be part of the
I
inflection
have no
point.
problem being there. It's just a question of whose time is being wasted.
Yeah.
And that's all. 'Cause-
They would like to move as quick as possible, so I don't think they're,
Yeah, good luck with that.
Always.
well, they haven't even
Always,
sent me,
always.
they were supposed to send me stuff, but they,
Yeah.
yeah, still haven't.
So, you know,
It's,
John, when I look at a lot of movies and people drive cars up and down stairs a lot in the movies. Are you saying that doesn't really work?
You know, I looked at that project and thought,
I know.
you know, there are people who would do that project, but I gotta tell you, they're almost at like a stage of life where like, they don't even get involved in that.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
it before, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. well,
Like I
All
said,
right.
Would you like a motion to adjourn?
I would love a motion to
moved.
adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.